This broadcast of the Competizione Performance League World Series is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of Round 7 of the Competizione Performance League World Series. And as always, I am Regan Clark. You join us here, right here in Montmeló, Barcelona, here in the region of Catalonia, Spain, at the site of the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Founded in 1989, first opening its doors in 1991. In the modern day, it's comprised of 16 turns and 2.9 miles of FIA Grade 1. Home of the Spanish Grand Prix until 2025, now going under the moniker of the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix for the 2026 Formula 1 season. It hosts also the Catalan Grand Prix in Grand Prix motorcycle racing in the current day of MotoGP. Outside of Grand Prix style racing, it hosts the European Le Mans Series as 4 Hours of Barcelona, the 24-hour series is 24 Hours of Barcelona, and the GT World Challenge, TCR Europe, and most recently, this season's Ferrari Challenge Finale Mondiale for 2026. It is a fantastic circuit, part of the vital infrastructure of Formula One's testing apparatus. This circuit is a fantastically well-designed one, very well balanced, good for developing cars, good for developing setups for cars. So today the drivers should find little difficulty in navigating its corners over the course of what is coming up to be the return of the 3X40. Taking a look at round 7 today then on the calendar, here for May 2nd, the return of the 3X40. The last time we saw this was back in Silverstone at the start of the World Series way back in February. At the time then, looking back through the race wins, all three of said races were won in pro by Zalan Such, with AM being split between Richard Cecil for the first 2 races and Sergio Belda for the third and final at Silverstone. Return on to 3 times the point scoring opportunities coming in towards this round of the championship. Taking a look at the session regulations, starting things off with the regs for today to see that we're in the last 10 minutes of free practice. Coming up around the corner is 30 minutes of qualifying, then 3 back-to-back 40-minute races, about 6 minutes worth of break time between all 3 of those races, of which no mandatory pit stops for either race 1, 2 or 3. Looking away then from the regulations and into the championship standings, starting things off with the teams after last round. In round 6 of the championship, Malwa Racing continually to lead the team's championship in pro, up and ahead of 5-Star Esports, who recently emerged ahead of Black Nitro Racing, now dropping down to 3rd. Velocity Racing Team 4th, Clutch Kick Motorsports in 5th, Euro Titans in 6th, Fortune Racing in 7th, Garage 93 in 8th, Ditosto Moto in 9th, and Clemanio Racing in 10th, Nexus Racing in 11th, Race Revolution in 12th, PRL Esport Console in 13th, and Vortex Racing Team in 14th. In the AMs, Holkianos continue to lead over the Malwa Racing AM division, those two separate by 104 points on the run-in towards this 3X40 today. Tomcats Motorsport makes 3rd place ahead of what is now a newly found 4th for Let's Race Mate. The 4th place team now 69 points in contention there, 3 points ahead of Fora de Curva at the back of the top 5. Pinnacle Endurance Racing, I should say, they're 61 points, giving us 3 positions there, 4th, 5th and 6th, within 8 points of one another. Team Raceline in 7th, with Breaking Point Racing in 8th, and the Presidential Racers in 9th. Taking a look then back in towards the live footage here to discuss the Drivers' Championship standings, and taking a look first with the run of things in pro. Christian Lebay leads up and ahead of David Tanguay, 225 points to Tanguay's 194. After last week's successes, Zalan Such emerges into a more predominant 3rd, getting closer to Tanguay there with 175 points. He's ahead of Wright in 4th place with 146. Jonas Franke in 5th ahead of Brooklyn Donkin. Those two separate by 5 points apiece there from in and then out of the top 5. 5th and 6th, a joint 7th behind between Rafael Bayer and Kyle Jenkins with 102 points. In 9th place, the driver on screen at the moment, Ben Cheeseman, with 95 points to his name. And then in 10th place, Lucas Milch with 91 points. Moving away from the talk of things in pro and moving into the discussion for the championship standings in AM, we have Richard Cecil firmly in the lead over Sergio Belda, 245 points to 212 on a continued winning streak in the last 2 races. Ivan Sanchez makes 3rd place with JM Quito in 4th, rounding out the top 5. A joint 5th place found between Christophe Dupois and Andrew Veldkamp from the Malwa Racing AM division, both of which hold 119 points on the run in towards round 7 today. Everaldo dos Santos 8 points off of both of them with 111 points. Then as it stands, 5 points off of him, Didier Potvin in 8th place, Joey Fisher in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Stephen Black in 10th place with 73 points. So getting a look in towards today's session, we're on board at the moment with Ben Cheeseman. As before we get into the talks of balance of performance, and getting a look there at the timings to find LeBay fastest in Pro and Cecil fastest in AM. It's worth noting here in the case of AM, only 510, I should say there, thousandths of a second, so just a little over half a second between Joey Fisher and Richard Cecil at the forefront of the AMs. Christophe Dupois makes third with Maloir Racing's AM division. Then Cedric Grenier-Massé in fourth, Danny Felix in fifth. In the talks of the pros, only 6 on today's grid, a surprisingly low number for the premier category of this championship, with LeBay fastest, Donkin second, Jenkins in third, Tanguay fourth, Franca in fifth, and Cheeseman in sixth place there, separate from Franca as it would stand by about 46 thousandths of a second. So, as we just quickly see there, Cedric Grenier-Massé now goes third fastest for BMW down in the AM category. Watching on board then with Richard Cecil as we begin the discussions before the end of free practice today of balance of performance and what it concerns. Well, having a look at today, Aston Martin continued to lose 40 kilos, which is going to be fantastic news once again for Karina Stinson, currently 18th in the session with Aston Martin. 40 kilos off will keep them nice and spry for the run in towards round 7's triple header race. Mercedes second in class there, 4 kilos off, and that's a joint second when you consider the presence of Nissan, also 4 kilos off. Aston Martin's V8 Vantage with 2 kilos off. And then we also find ourselves the case there with BMW and McLaren, both with a single kilo removed. Into the positives, Bentley gained 2, Porsche gained 8, Lamborghini and Ford gained 13. It's Ferrari to be on the short end with 20 kilos on. So for both Jenkins and Fisher, should be possible continued issues over the course of qualifying today. Now, of course, 30 minutes of qualifying, going back into the discussion of the regulations here. 30 minutes of quali. Split. Actually, no, that's a GT4 legislature, not split for this one here. So they will just be spending all 30 minutes out on track, and that will decide the grid for race 1, 2, and 3. So it won't be a case where, like in other races in real life that have multiple races run back to back, where it's based off of results from the last race. No, this qualifying session will be incredibly important, just as it was in Silverstone, at deciding all 3 starting grids for round 7 of the championship. With 2.5 minutes left to go then of free practice, it looks to be a predominantly AM grid for the run into round 7's 3 races. And the qualifying there in which before them. If you joined us earlier on today, we had a fantastic bout of racing over on HCCL with the Multiclass Championship Season 4 Round 3, giving us the first night race of their season over in Kyalami. We saw some fantastic racing throughout, with hopes that the ball could continue to roll today here in the World Series. We do see that it is getting very close up at the front of things here. When you remove LeBay from the equation with that dominant 143.090, he's 935 thousandths up the road, nearly a full second here from Brooklyn Donkin in the number 17. Really, where we're focusing on is the gaps there in behind, because between Donkin and Jenkins right now is in the span of, looking here, 35 thousandths of a second for second place here. 5-star versus Euro Titans, 2 firm rivals in this area of the industry. This ought to be a rather interesting bout of racing when you consider that Donkin, as things would stand here, just having a glance through the entry list, is the only driver from Euro Titans to compete on today's grid. Looking at the gap in behind between Cheeseman and Tanguay also reveals here a gap of 122 thousandths, so still very close off of that second row into the third row. We see joining us in chat there, NGR Danzo and C Ford MCR. Good evening to you. Join us here in the closing race of today's broadcast itinerary. Only 2 events on for today, with, as it stands, not much coming up tomorrow, if anything. Worth noting there was a disconnect amongst the ranks. We have observed it there. There was some issues for connections. I believe, yes, it was for Brooklyn Donkin for but a moment there. He does reconnect to the field, bringing the tally of pro drivers back up to 6. Right now, by a factor of more than double, we have the current itinerary of AMs ranking in at some 14 AM drivers in attendance to only 6 in Pro, bringing us a grid of 20 drivers for the triple header here today. 3 times the point scoring opportunities when you consider the forefront of the Pro Championship here in the talks of LeBay versus Tanguay, 225 points to 194. Doing the quick maths here to see what the current gap is looking like for the run in towards round 7 of the championship. It's in the span of only about here 31 points, so really awfully not too bad whatsoever. when you consider that LeBay would need to lead out of round 7 with way more of a current points gap than he would be able to acquire in this round to win the championship. He still has a long way to go before he's in the run to be champion on the World Series, so there's still a lot more coming up around the corner for him, but this will be a great opportunity for that 119 to start building that gap up north of 31 points. I think one of the more challenging points of this grid at the moment, as the current number of drivers now brings up to 21, I believe with the introduction there of Ivan Sanchez right in the trailing end here of free practice, is the mysterious absence of last week's race winner at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, Alan Such, who won out in round 6 on his return to the series. Competed in the last 2 rounds, but now has mysteriously vanished. The hopes that we could see him over the course of qualifying today. He did make a rather late appearance to things over the course of the last round, but this is certainly starting to become an unhealthy habit. It's keeping us on our toes. In towards qualifying then, 30 minutes of quali today, and we see the pits already lively with drivers making their way out. Joey Fisher and Brooklyn Donkin, and oh, as it appears, we've just run into a bit of a, I think this was an enforced disconnect, so do bear with us just a moment. We'll return in a moment's time. So back into the session. Yes, it was a mandated disconnect so that the servers could have a bit of a refresh before we got in towards the bulk of action today at qualifying and the races. But right now we wait with just about 4.5 minutes left to go before the start of qualifying proper. Currently not a lot of movement there from the pit lane, as I say that, making their way out, the number 17 and the number 55. So we see from Brooklyn Donkin and Stefan Nicolai on their way down through towards the Elf chicane here, turns 1, 2. And then on the run round towards Renault corner at turn 3. We'll get a full tour of the track over the course of qualifying. We've just got about 4 minutes left to go, so it really does widely depend on if Donkin can get his way down towards the line before the end of this session. Taking a look, though, at the current joining itinerary, up to 20 drivers. Now, I believe we could be seeing a few more there. We've seen most recently was been Stefan Nicolai joining the fray. It is going to be, it's somewhat of an awkward breaker in the event scheduling there to have that extra 5 minutes on top, but the whole reasoning behind it is obviously so that the server doesn't run into too many troubles on the run in towards the actual bulk of the event, because obviously the free practice session, just looking back into the regulations, has been going for upwards of 4 hours before we went live. It went live for this event about, looking here in the ballpark of about midday from where we're recording. It's now 5 o'clock in the afternoon, having joined for the last 10 minutes or so. You see that number now crawls up past 21 drivers. You see Jonas Franke on the field now, having joined in. So as it would appear, we are likely to get a track tour here out of Brooklyn Donkin. So let's go and catch on board with the Euro Titans number 17 BMW on his way down towards the line. So a little bit of a treat then just before the start of qualifying to get ourselves acquainted with this fantastic circuit on the run down the opening straight in towards turns 1 and 2 here at the Elf chicane. Up and around turn 1 and 2, then into this long sweeping right-hander, somewhat reminiscent of the Curva Grande over at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. This is Renault corner here at turn 3. And the run up towards Repsol. So this will be one of our major overtaking opportunities if turn 1 and 2 wasn't already heavily enough an indicator. This is a very action-oriented first sector. A lot of medium speed corners there, nothing that's going to push the car to its absolute limit. Down through to turn 5 we go here. That's Seat. The run down through this slight kink to the left here at turn 6 in towards turn 7. Heavy braking zone into here at the Worth corner. Up and around turn 8. as it levels out in towards turn 9 at Kamsa. We get this nice back straight here for the run in towards Lakaiha. Another heavy overtaking opportunity down here. Heavy braking zone at turn 10. On the run round into turn 11. Then up through turn 12. As we make our way round the run of things here at turn 12 up towards Eurocar. On the run into the RACC chicane. Now this area of the track was used in the Spanish Grand Prix up until about 2020, looking here, 2021, 2022, wherein which it was later replaced with the straight run around at turn 13. That's been used in the Catalan Grand Prix a lot longer than it's been used in Formula 1. Out through Catalonia curve, then through turn 16 to the line. Goes Brooklyn Donkin, 145.372. Right in the trailing end then here of free practice. A great run of things from the number 17. Across the line he goes as one of the only times on today's chart. Stefan Nikolai without a time there, but he still has the time at the end of free practice to do one more lap. Looking around the field to see nearest drivers to the line here, we do see from that of Matthew Bedensky. He's making his way out through Catalonia, so he is within his chances. Just having a glance, yes, 20 seconds left to go in free practice, so he will be able to do at least one flying lap, give himself a bit of a tester run here just before we get in towards today's session. It's worth noting, also just glancing at the time of today's session, 8:04 a.m. So we are going to be breaking in slowly but surely into hotter, brighter conditions as the session progresses. We see here from Bedensky in the 5:05 at the end of free practice today. Number 59 was across the line a moment ago. That was for Joey Fisher with Ferrari. Both he and Kyle Jenkins will struggle under today's BOP, but we've already seen just before the session reset was a case where Fisher was second fastest in the AMS, tucked in behind Richard Cecil. We see Casey Miles across the line. You see joining us in chat as well, just in the trailing end of today's session, Cohen Kendi sadly having to sit today's race out after an injury in the line of work has kept him from participating in today's race. And much as we mentioned earlier for that of Marek Klopsch over on HCCL, swiftest of recoveries is what we hope for here. So all the best to you. And hopefully you enjoyed today's triple header of racing. This is really going to be quite a chaotic ensemble. Now, to give a short view back to the past here, just before we get back in towards qualifying, we see down to the line there goes Stefan Nikolai, goes fastest, 1:45.020. That's just shy of 4 tenths faster than Brooklyn Donkin. To give you a short view back to the past on what that first triple header looked like, we had 3 down to the wire finishes between Zalan Such and Christian Lebay, all 3 of which in the pro category were won by Zalan Such. We also had some brilliant fighting throughout. We had 2 wins back-to-back for Richard Cecil and a first of the season for Sergio Belda at the trailing end of 3 races. So it's quite an exciting thing to see the 3x40 return this late on in the championship, and this is not our last visit to the format. 30 minutes of qualifying now officially underway after a short delay there from earlier on. Making their way out onto the field, we already see movement from that of Donkin and Nikolai. We'll go to catch on board here with the number 17, who will once again lead the charge down through the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. On board then with Donkin as we discuss the qualifying predictions. Now, we only have data to hand on 9 drivers, forming what is not even necessarily a top 10 prediction, more or less a top 9 based off the data we have. Now, this is shot full of holes when you consider we have 21 drivers in attendance to round 7 here in qualifying. Taking a look at those qualifying predictions nonetheless, Christian Lebay predicted at pole 1:43.255. Kyle Jenkins second and Brooklyn Donkin in third. Ben Cheeseman in fourth. Richard Cecil in fifth. And Cedric Grenier-Massé in sixth. Now, it's worth pointing out that fifth and sixth because what it's still showing us is another pole, but this one by division for Richard Cecil. Andrew Velkamp in 7th, Matthew Bedensky in 8th, and Karina Stinson predicted at 9th. Actually, that I believe stands. I'm just going to double check what the data was saying for me at the time, but I'm pretty sure, in the absence of anything confirming that, that is a level time, and we didn't even recognize it as we filtered through the notes for today's session. But having a quick glance, just to double check. No, in the case of Stinson, it was a 1:49.397, so there's a little bit of an incorrection on that one there, but regardless, still shows Stinson in behind in for 9th place on those predictions. And again, highly inaccurate when you consider we have 21 cars in attendance for round 7 qualifying. So down to the line goes Brooklyn Donkin. We'll stay on board with him for the run of the first flying lap of the session. Of course, we did get to see a little bit of a teaser run from the 17 and the 55 over the course of that 5-minute interlude between free practice and qualifying. Down towards turn 1 and 2 we go. We see up in front of him there is Cedric Grenier-Massey, who's predicted right now division 2nd amongst the AMs for today's round. With Donkin currently predicted in 3rd place, behind that of Kyle Jenkins. I'd say there's a pretty good chance here Donkin will be fending off against Stefan Nikolai in the fray to become 2nd place for this race. It does seem relatively conclusive right now that Labay will be on for another pole position in the absence of competition from Zalan Such, who we still have yet to have seen on this grid. It's somewhat of a pity when you consider 3x the point scoring opportunities. Right now, it's going to narrow down to the current 2 leading drivers in Pro in the topic of the championship standings. This is going to push Zalan Such quite far out if he can't make his way into either of these 3 races. We're going to be talking, in the Pros at least, a bit of a 2-horse race when it comes to Labay versus Tanguay, but that widely depends on what the Bentley can do over the course of this race to keep up with the 119. I'm sure that's something that weighs heavy on the mind of a lot of the drivers here, is how do we keep up with Ford in today's race. Down through turn 12, we see here with Donkin, behind him Stefan Nikolai, behind them Cedric Grenier-Massey, but we saw him on his out lap, so it's a case where Jonas Franke will be the next driver to set in a lap time on this qualifying session. Down through to the RACC chicane, and times fly by pretty quickly there when you consider we're nearly 4 minutes into the session still without a time on the charts. We see down to the line though comes Brooklyn Donkin to be our provisional fastest, 1:45.247. Then Nikolai from behind him goes faster by nearly half a second. Then we see to the line Jonas Franke with Porsche goes 2nd fastest and nearly full fastest there by 100th of a second. Approaching the line though comes the 119. Here's Christian Labay, full 2nd up over any other driver there, 1.010. when it comes to the gap between himself and Stefan Nikolai. Joey Fisher joins the fray there, 4th fastest. Then across the line a moment ago was the number 5, Richard Cecil, invalid time on that last run. Number 35, Didier Potvin across the line from behind him was the number 91 of Ivan Sanchez. From behind him was Casey Malz. Number 616 nearest to the line. Here comes Andrew Veldkamp with Ford. And the Maloir Racing AM division goes 2nd fastest in division, 6th fastest overall. Approaching the line, number 39, Christophe Dupois. Maloir Racing AM division. Down to the line he goes there, 9th. Currently ranks in division 5th. Number 65 nearest the line. Here comes Sergio Belder, of course, won in this format before. Goes 2nd fastest among the AMs, 6th fastest overall so far. And then we see Danny Felix enter the fray for that 2nd fastest time. And 6th overall. Right now, though, head and shoulders above the rest in the AMs is Joey Fisher. Number 114 approaches the line. Here comes Ben Cheeseman. Across the line he goes. No time set there for the Lamborghini. Number 26 nearest to the line. So we go to catch on board here with JM Quito, who's amongst the top 5 in the AMs right now with Holkianos. Down to the line he goes from 17 for the field. No time set there for him. Number 17 approaches the line. Here comes Donkin from 5th to 2nd. Then Nikolai from 3rd. Stays 3rd in that last lap just gone. Number 30 across the line a moment ago. David Tanguay, no time set. Number 413 across the line stays in 4th. Jonas Franke. Then we see the 119. Can he extend over a 1:43.747? Yes. 1:43.587. Number 59 across the line. Here comes Fisher. Stays what is now 5th place for him. Still leading the AMs. Number 5 though approaching the line. Here comes Cecil. Goes 2nd fastest there by about half a second off of Joey Fisher. Could this be Fisher's first opportunity to take a race win today? Well, he's got 3 opportunities back to back, and it starts today with qualifying ahead of the current AM Championship leader. Number 616 across the line a moment ago there for Andrew Veldkamp. Ranks in Division 6th amongst the AMs. Number 39 nearest the line, currently 13th overall in the session. Now plenty of drivers as of yet qualified on this 22 car grid. Jenkins, Tanguay, Cheeseman, Stinson, Quito, Badensky, Black and Pereira among them. Number 65 across the line a moment ago there. Sergio Belder now 4th in division. Number 985 and 113 across the line. Kyle Jenkins goes 2nd fastest with 5-star esports Ferrari. Number 113, 783 thousandths away. Number 114 across the line. And his teammate, Ben Cheeseman, ranks in, looking there just out of the top 5, but 6th on the grid. Separate from Jonas Franke by having a glance in there, 347 thousandths of a second. Number 17 across the line. Here comes Brooklyn Donkin. Can he retake the mantle of seconds? Not on this lap. Number 30 approaching the line, David Tanguay. Is it third time's the charm? Yes, it is. And goes 4th fastest for his efforts. Number 119 across the line. Another improvement there for Christian LeBay. 143.267 for the number 119 Mustang. Number 59 approaches the line. Current division leader in the AMS, Joey Fisher, stays on his current fastest time. Number 5 approaching the line. Here comes Richard Cecil. And as of yet, stays in division 2nd. Nearest to the line, number 96, Casey Malles, with Team Raceline. Down through Catalonia corner. Behind him, the number 91, Ivan Sanchez. Then behind him, Andrew Veldkamp. 3 different teams in contention there. Malles up and ahead of Veldkamp, currently 15th overall in the session. We see from the number 91's perspective, stays 18th. We see for Malles, that's recently downgraded to 16th as Andrew Veldkamp goes up to 13th. The 39 hits the line here. Here comes the Lexus of Dupois, goes up to 15th, pushes Malles down another position, and Badensky out of the top 15. Number 65 across the line a moment ago there. 3rd fastest for Belder. And as it stands there, glancing in, a gap of about 70, I want to say 78 thousandths of a second between Richard Cecil in 2nd and Sergio Belder in 3rd in the AM division. 114 across the line. Cheeseman in the top 5 now, ahead of Stefan Nikolai. Number 505, Badensky across the line there, goes 16th in the session so far. Number 800, Karina Stinson. Now onto another flying lap. Last one did not qualify, sadly, for the V12 Vantage. Across the line goes the number 17, Donkin, now 2nd. Number 55 across the line there. Nikolai in 4th, pushes Cheeseman back out of the top 5. 813, 30 and 6 across the line. 413, I should say there. That was for Jonas Franke, 7th. David Tanguay in 5th in the number 30. And as for the number 6, that was Cedric Grenier-Massey, currently 5th in the AMS. So after the first 10 minutes of qualifying in today's session, Christian LeBay fastest in the pros, Joey Fisher fastest in the AMS. Nearest to the line, number 96, 91 and 616 are the same trio we watched on a moment ago with Malles, Sanchez and Veldkamp. Malles goes up to 16th. Sanchez stays in 18th. Veldkamp approaches the line from 13th and stays there also. We see from behind them the number 39 out through Catalonia corner. Christophe Dupois with Lexus. Sadly, that's showing his old GT4 graphic. That's certainly an odd-looking Mercedes, if you ask me. 15th for the time being. 985 across the line a moment ago. Danny Felix goes 2nd fastest now in the AMS. Get a glance at this one here from the BMW. Goes in 2nd fastest behind Joey Fisher, ahead of Richard Cecil. And this is set to be a very close trio of races, I should say, to follow for control of the AM division. Right now in the championship standings, of course, Richard Cecil leads over these two. This ought to be a very interesting turn of events to follow. Number 55 nearest the line, Stefan Nikolai, 4th, and stays there for the time being. 413 across the line a moment ago. And a huge shoot up there from 7th to 2nd for Jonas Franke of Black Nitro Racing Porsche. Goes 2nd fastest, the only driver currently to have broken within a second of the fastest time of the session. Number 59 nearest to the line. Here comes Fisher. Stays in that current overall 8th position. Number 5 across the line also there. Stays in division 3rd, 10th overall. And back in again with the 96 and the 91. Malles and Sanchez, as it would stand, 11th and 12th in division, 18th and 19th overall. Malles all the way up to 15th there. Sanchez from behind him, all the way up and ahead to 14th. So very, very solid stuff to be considered there. Ivan Sanchez goes up now from what was towards the back of the field, division 12th, now goes into division 7th in the number 91 Holkianos Mustang. joins up and alongside teammate JM Quito. Fastest of the whole Kianos Mustangs right now, Sergio Belda, 4th in the AMs. Number 35 and number 985 approaching the line. Here comes Danny Felix. He's 4 tenths away, actually a little under 4 tenths away from Joey Fisher's current leading time of the AM category. Ben Cheeseman approaching the line from 7th, goes 6th ahead of David Tanguay. Looking here, the 505, Matthew Badensky across the line, goes to 13th overall in the session. That currently ranks in then up and ahead of both Quito and Sanchez, going in towards Division 6th for the number 505 BMW. Number 800 across the line a moment ago, Karina Stinson, 20th in the session so far then, ranks in Division 13th. 413 across the line a moment ago then, we see for Jonas Franke still maintains his 2nd place position, but it has been a remarkable turnaround here for Porsche over the course of the first half of qualifying. Still 17 minutes left to go before the end of quali today. We've also seen there a recent shift in, I believe there, yes, for JM Quito going ahead of Matthew Badensky, back up into Division 6th in today's session. Nearest the line, number 17. So here comes Brooklyn Donkin. And did I just read that correctly? Yes, it is. Right, is on the grid. The 54 Lexus is with us today. It still begs the question, where is the 45? If already we've had some drivers show up late, is there still the hope that Alan Such, the 3-time winner of the last 3X40, is going to appear for this grid? But with Wright in the equation, that's going to make things all the more interesting, bringing the current tally of pro drivers up to 8 on the grid right now. 16.5 minutes left to go. So far, so good on the span of qualifying. Jonas Franke, currently 2nd then with Porsche. Number 113 across the line a moment ago. Kyle Jenkins maintains current positioning of 4th. Now, it's worth pointing out the gap between himself and Donkin for the last of those podium positions here in quali. These two separate by 23 thousandths of a second. Then when you get into the look behind Kyle Jenkins to Stefan Nikolai at the back of the top 5, that's in the span of 57 thousandths of a second. So still very, very close amongst the top 5 here. Then looking in behind Nikolai to Cheeseman, that's 21 thousandths. So again, here in the World Series, it's a case where it's difficult to point out just how close those gaps are, as we now see Tanguay go 2nd fastest with Bentley, a Malois 1-2 in Pro. The Bentley now up over Jonas Franke's Porsche by 100 and looking here, 125 thousandths. Number 5 across the line a moment ago. Richard Cecil back onto another flying lap. Finds himself, as we mentioned before, in the ballpark. Looking in here, actually, it's between himself and Danny Felix. At a, looking here, 185 thousandths of a second. Really some breakout stories of that top, of that first, sorry, 15 minutes. Yeah, fantastic English. 15 minutes of the session has been a case here. Danny Felix's breakout move to 2nd, Joey Fisher's breakout move to the lead of the AMs here in qualifying. That's much to the dismay of the current AM Championship leader and last round's race winner in the AM category, Richard Cecil. Also has been the topic up in that small but sweet grid of pros we're seeing at the moment is a case where it's been razor thin throughout, but there's been plenty of drivers to try and challenge for that front row. Tanguay, Franke, we've seen from Jenkins as well. We also saw very early in the session was Nikolai, who we now see in the gravel off the exit of, having a glance in there, that's at Catalunya curve at turn 16. Now this is a very curious one to see here, right on the grid. After just nearly the first half of the session, now we'll go and catch on board with the 54. We've seen him to be an exceptional talent on this grid, very, very fast in his own respect. We'll see what he can make of today's session. On board then with Wright as he makes his way down through to Sayat corner. Lexus cars are a formidable assortment when it comes to straight line speed, much like the Ford Mustang of the current day. So down that opening straight between turn 16 and 1, they could be finding themselves with quite a lot to talk about in these next 3 races to follow. 40 minutes apiece, no pit stop on either of them. It's come to be a case really over the last couple of years, I suppose more relevantly the last decade of racing here in GT3, that the Lexus RCF has sort of become the Toyota Land Cruiser of GTs. It is a design impossible to kill because try as they may, Toyota have only really seemed to have found the solution on what to replace the RCF with now in 2026, when the design was first introduced in 2014 I believe, actually at the earliest was the case here for the RCF. With the Toyota GR-GT, or I suppose more relevantly, it's just called the GR-GT. It's not actually related to Toyota, and it won't be sold at Toyota dealerships either. It's going to be sold in Lexus dealerships, which is a curious case. So it's being pedaled forward much like the LC500, much like the LFA, and also much like the RCF. Toyota, or more relevantly, Gazoo Racing, as their newly found performance offshoot, are gunning to replace the RCF with the GR-GT. It seems to be much more closer in line in terms of its design ethic, away from what's been a more conventional coupe style like we see here with the slightly bulkier, almost muscle car-esque affectations of the RCF's design. And it seems a lot closer to actually a Mercedes in nature, as we do see there stranded was Sergio Belda on track at the moment. It's worth pointing out that last lap, though invalid, read a 1:46.067, so already looking rather fast here for Wright. As we continue to watch on board with the Lexus RCF down through towards turn 11 and 12. Right now, as the data would have it, looking at the telemetry, he's about 2.3 seconds up over that margin and is still well within valid parameters. So making his way down to the line, Wright is about to shoot all the way up through the order from where he is currently, about 23rd on this field. Down to the line comes the 54. Where does he find himself among the fray? Only 8th fastest is a curious case there for Wright, as it certainly looked to be a lot faster a lap than the data would otherwise suggest. We must consider as well, he's had far less time to practice in these conditions. You see that in the searing heat right now in Spain, 31 degrees on track, 22 ambient. It is a tough break here for the Lexus. You see the only driver yet to have qualified is Ruben Pereira in the 888. 10 minutes coming up on left to go in this session. Labey is back out and lapping the track. 1:43.267, the fastest time to beat so far from the 119 at Maloir Racing. David Tanguay second, Jonas Franke in third, Brooklyn Donkin in fourth, Kyle Jenkins in fifth, Stefan Nikolai sixth, Cheeseman seventh, and Wright in eighth. He now makes his way back out onto the track, having refreshed and resolved. The 54 is back out on the charge. Joey Fisher leads AM at the moment. Richard Cecil returns to second, and get a look at that gap. We're glancing in there to see a gap of 18 thousandths of a second at the front row of the AMs here on what is technically the fifth row of the grid overall, between Joey Fisher and Richard Cecil. This ought to be a very exciting trio of races to follow if these two are to hold pace this close to one another. We could be seeing quite a fair deal of scrapping down in the AM category. And we spoke earlier about how close some of the gaps were when it came to talking about the pros, but getting a look at some of the gaps here for the AMs, taking a look between Sanchez and Mals, this is only in the span of 45 thousandths of a second. Looking further up towards the front, of course, 18 thousandths of a second between Fisher and Cecil. As for Danny Felix, he finds himself a bit of a fair distance away there, just a little under 4 tenths. He finds himself only about 263 thousandths up over that of Sergio Belda in fourth. Getting a look in here, another very close gap. This is just in and then out of the top 5. Cedric Grenier-Massey and JM Quito. Now, these two separate, as it stands there, doing the quick maths on it, by about 7 thousandths of a second. 7 tenths would be a great deal. You also see here Bedensky from Veldkamp. These two separate, as it would stand here, by about 44 5 thousandths between 15th and 16th overall on today's grid. Nearest to the line is the number 800, so we'll go to quickly catch on here with Karina Stinson. Behind her is that of Stefan Nikolai. Across the line there, Stinson 21st overall in today's session. That ranks in 13th in division as things would stand. Number 119 nearest the line. So you've got to bear in mind here, 143.267 to beat is the fastest time so far, and he doesn't find it on this lap, but Labay is still determined to break into the very low 143s, dare I say even scratching at the surface of an ultra high 142. We've seen this driver on our screens multiple times, and we didn't realize it at the time, but in multiple occurrences over both this championship and the GT4 Pro-Am Cup, another series you can catch live here on TRTN from the Competizione Performance League. He has, on multiple occasions, gone on to make world record lap times in these qualifying sessions. So this is a driver operating right at the very tip of the spear for what this division of esports can provide. We see in recent turns then, Brooklyn Donkin goes second fastest, now 678 thousandths of a second away from Labay. 7 minutes left to go in the session. Number 113 nearest to the line just after Jonas Franke made 4th. Kyle Jenkins peels to the pit lane. Number 707 nearest to the line, so we'll go to catch on board here Stephen Black. On his way down through Catalonia Curve. Behind him the 59 as it would appear, so that's Joey Fisher at the lead of the AMs. Across the line there goes Black from 22nd, stays there for the time being. Fisher across the line and stays exactly where he is right now, still 18 thousandths separate from Cecil. Number 55 nearest to the line, here comes Stefan Nikolai from 6th. Needs about 57 thousandths there to catch up to Kyle Jenkins. Couldn't find it in that lap. Number 39 across the line and stays where he is there. Christophe Dupois in 20th. Number 6 across the line a moment ago. Cedric Grenier-Massé stays in division 5th, 13th overall. Here comes the 119. Still gunning for that improvement. Can he find it on this lap? Not this time around. 6 minutes left to go. And the 119 comes to a stop there, just on the right-hand side of the track. Number 91 across the line a moment ago. There for Ivan Sanchez, 18th overall in the session, 10th in division. Number 5, here comes Richard Cecil. Bear in mind, a minuscule 18,000th of a second margin exists now at the forefront of the AMs for today's qualifying session. As we drop in closer to the last 5 minutes here of what has been a 30-minute qualifying session at hand, Cecil is so close, yet as it would appear right now, so far away. We've seen plenty of twists and turns and surprises over the course of this qualifying session, and I don't think we are yet spent on our total number of them. 5 minutes left to go then. Donkin across the line maintains second with BMW. Number 35 across the line, here comes Potvin, stays in 17th. Number 30 approaching the line, here comes Tanguay. Tanguay looking to reclaim on that front row position. It's worth pointing out he recently shot up towards the back end of Pro towards the front end, having gone from what was at the time 7th up towards 2nd. 55 nearest, Stefan Nikolai. Having started his endeavours off in this championship with McLaren, moved over to Mercedes not long thereafter, making his way down to turn 16. Number 39 from behind him, so Dupois will be across the line next. We see Nikolai across the line, stays in 6th. Number 39 across the line here from 20th on the field. Dupois stays there for the time being. Cedric Grenier-Massé from behind him in 5th in division, 13th overall, stays there for the time being also. It seems here in the last 5 minutes of the session, we're seeing a lot of plateauing. Now the ceiling for performance on these drivers has been met in force. Number 54 from behind the 91 across the line. So approaching the line, goes the 54 of right and stays in 8th. It's a curious case here. Despite even a late entry, there was a lot of potential going for him in towards today's session. Right now, struggling to make ends meet on this one. 4 minutes left to go. 114 across the line. Cheeseman still 7th in the session. And still, as it would stand there, 21 thousandths off of Nikolai. Number 17 nearest to the line. It's going to take a time well above and beyond the call of duty here for Brooklyn Donkin to go pole position. 678 thousandths. Can he find it on this lap across the line? Sadly, not the case for the BMW. I think that was largely in part of what happened as he ran out wide from turn 15 into turn 16. Number 35 coming to the line. Didier Potvin from 17th stays there. Then across the line coming here from the number 30 is David Tanguay. From third, stays there. 3 minutes left to go. 55 nearest to the line, out through turn 12 at this time and towards Eurocar in the RACC chicane. This has been an area that's already caught out quite a few over the course of qualifying so far. Likely to do the same. Of course, the last time we were here in Barcelona was the site of, I would say, probably one of the most infamous scenarios to have ever played out here on Competizione Performance League, when, I'm trying to remember which one it was one of the Milk Crate Racing Chevrolets in GT4, went literally head over heels out from Eurocar. Now, we didn't see the full part of it. We only saw the aftermath where he'd come across on his side, but he'd actually done a full kickflip on the replays we'd seen. And it was really quite something to behold in retrospect, because that was, by and large, one of the most bizarre incidents I think we've ever seen. Ever covering motor racing. Down across the line, number 54. And, we've just had a bit of a lock up here. You're just going to have to give us a moment. Well, apologies about that one. A bit of a confusing tech problem. But because of that, it has accidentally reset our timers. So you'll have to gun it by eye here. About 1 minute and 45 left to go in this session. So we are seeing, for the majority of drivers here, the last of their runs they'll have over the course of the session at large. The case here of Wright, still gunning for an improvement out past 8th. He's on the back end of that 4th row right now. And some struggles apparent here for Lexus, against what we originally thought would be capable of them in today's session. Never say never on that prospect, though, as we still have plenty of time. In the case of this one here, still one more lap to play for, down through the run of things here at La Caja. Looking for the 55 down across the line, though it appeared invalid for this one, 45.355, so even if it wasn't, it wouldn't have been an improvement necessary for position. As it stands right now in Pro, it's LeBay, Donkin and Tanguay. As it stands in AM, it's Fisher, Cecil and Felix. Across the line a moment ago when the number 6, Cedric Grenier-Massey, onto his last flying lap of qualifying today. Number 54 across the line, right onto his last. Number 91 approaching the line, so here comes Sanchez from 18th on the field, stays there as it would appear right now. He's 200 thousandths of a second, so 2 tenths between himself and Didier Potvin in 17th. 113 across the line. Jenkins stays in 5th. 114 joins him there on the 3rd row as Ben Cheeseman goes 6th. Now up and ahead of Nikolai, forcing him down to 7th place. Number 505 nearest the line. That'll be for Badensky. We'll see what he can do then. He was recently inside of that top 5 not long ago, but it's since changed for him, making his way down to the line. What can Badensky make of this one? Onto his last flying lap he goes. Currently ranks in at division, looking here, 7th. Right as the bells ring on the end of this session, we see down to the line goes Tanguay, finishes the session off in 3rd with Bentley and Maloir Racing up in Pro. Number 6 nearest to the line we see for Cedric Grenier-Massey, down through to La Caja. And so far so good for him. Amongst the top 5 here for the start for all 3 race starts, it's worth pointing out, in today's session. Triple the point scoring opportunity, so really absence in today's session has been to the detriment, more so than ever, of any driver. Down to the line comes Grenier-Massey. Can he find it into possibly a top 4 across the line? Yes, is the case for Cedric Grenier-Massey. Goes 4th fastest ahead of Sergio Belda. Now joins up alongside Danny Felix for an all BMW 2nd row in AM. We see right down to the line at the end of this session. Stays in 8th place. We'll start alongside Stefan Nikolai at the end of this qualifying session today. And we see the rest of it wrap up in course there. Christian LeBay on pole in the pros. Joey Fisher on pole in the AMs. We'll get a full rundown of the grid in just a moment's time. But to give you an update on what the regulations are showing for today's race, for those perhaps not yet in the loop, taking a look back into it, we're just at the end of 30 minutes of qualifying here in round 7 of the championship. Coming up around the corner, 3 40-minute races end on end. Now, the qualifying that you've just witnessed today will dictate all three of those starting grids. Neither of these three races have mandatory pit stops involved. It is a sprint from start to finish here, much as we saw when we first kicked off the Competizione Performance League World Series in Silverstone. Those three races at the top tier were won by Zalan Such, and the AMS, they were won by both Richard Cecil and Sergio Belda. Though today we could be seeing some new winners on the triple sprint format. So before we get in towards the look of the grids today, getting a look at some recent news then, starting things off in the World Rally Championship. The Lancia CEO in recent talks after the Islas Canarias rally has teased a potential Rally 1 project. Roberto Zerbi, the CEO of Lancia, spoke directly and confirmed the brand's interest in the next big jump. Now, among what he said was a case where they are working on a project to prepare for WRC 27, which is the FIA code name for the 2027 World Rally Championship regulations and the significant regs reforms coming up for Rally 1. They're sort of redubbing it as WRC 27, but it is an extension of Rally 1 that was introduced in 2022. So, put in short, Lancia, after their recent successes, 2 Rally 2 victories at the hands of Johan Rossell in the last 2 rounds, they are now more than ever considering their efforts to move to the top level of rallying. This would be the first time they did so since the 1990s. With 3 minutes before the start of the session, our other articles of news coming up over the course of today. In case you missed it earlier this week, the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series Season 4 signups are now live on Competizione Performance League, and the season will launch on June 2nd on the Eastern Standard Time. If you're from the UK or Europe, it will be on the 3rd in the early hours of the morning BST. And coverage is as of yet confirmed to be fully from us here on TRTN, but it is more than likely than not to be the case, and we'll have more confirmation for you as and when that rolls in. But before that point, let's get a look onto the grid for race 1 of 3 today here at the Competizione Performance League World Series Round 7. Christian Labbe on pole position with Brooklyn Donkin in 2nd, David Tanguay in 3rd, and Jonas Franke in 4th. Kyle Jenkins in 5th, Ben Cheeseman in 6th, Stefan Nikolai in 7th, and Wright rounds out the top 8 for the pros. Getting a look into the AMS then, talking by division positions here. Joey Fisher on pole with Richard Cecil in 2nd, Danny Felix in 3rd with Cedric Grenier-Massey in 4th, Sergio Belda in 5th, JM Quito in 6th, Matthew Bedensky in 7th, Veldkamp in 8th, Potvin 9th, Sanchez in 10th, Miles in 11th, Dupois in 12th, Stinson in 13th, Black in 14th, and Pereira in 15th. You can see the actual positionings there relative to the rest of the grid as it appears on the left-hand side. Your major players then from both categories, Labbe and Donkin over that front row in the pros. It's also worth keeping an eye there for Jonas Franke and Ben Cheeseman. I'd also keep a close eye on Stefan Nikolai, as he has proven to be somewhat of a wild card entry in the last couple of rounds. Now in the AMS, definitely the front row again here. Joey Fisher and Richard Cecil. Keep an eye, though, for Danny Felix and Cedric Grenier-Massey on the row behind. And then further down the line here, there could be some interesting performances at hand for drivers like Bedensky, like Quito, and like Belda. That top 6 really have a lot going for them down in the AMS. We'll see how they get on over the course of race 1. We're about a minute out from the start of the formation lap. When we do go on to the formation lap, we'll return to you in just a moment's time. You'll be watching it on board the 119, the pole-sitting Mustang, outright and in pro, Christian Labbe. "40 seconds then, so 10 seconds out from the start of that formation lap procedure. As we'll go to catch on board, the drivers will fire their engines up from this point onwards. So on board with the 119, the man on pole position for round 7, race 1. So far has quite a solid winning itinerary in this season. Picked up on his 2nd win not too long ago, as it would happen at round 5. Now looking to pick up on his 3rd this season. He's got plenty of opportunities in front of him to do so. So we'll catch on board in a moment's time, but following on board right now with Labbe for the start of the formation lap. We'll be back in a moment's time. And so following here with the leading trio of cars up in the pro category, they're joined just in behind them by Jonas Franke in 4th place. You can see the all 5-star third row as it would happen there with Jenkins and Cheeseman. Actually, that's yes, it is in a full 5-star third row with 5th and 6th place. We see behind them here is Stefan Nikolai, former member of the 5-star esports team, now a privateer in the 55 Mercedes. Behind him is Wright. Then backing straight onto the field of the sort of AM category here, we see for Joey Fisher, this is going to be his best opportunity in-house to secure a first win of the season. Now, he's already got the pace to prove it, albeit 18 thousandths is all that stands between himself and Richard Cecil pace-wise at the end of that qualifying session. So it's going to be thinly held here between the 59 and the 5. It's really up in the air as to who could lead in the AMs. I'd also keep a close eye there for Danny Felix and Cedric Grenier-Massa, the late-stage challengers to this run of things up at the front of the field. They joined in a little later on in this season, so it's going to be rather interesting to see what they make of things right now and what looks to be one of their more competitive starts to racing here in the World Series. Going back on board with the leading 119 as we make our way up and around turn 12 in towards turn 13 at Eurocar. So making our way down through the RACC chicane, this is going to be a very heavy area of contention over the course of the race to follow. But before we get to that point, making our way down to the line, 23 cars in all then. 11 on one side, 12 on the other. As we make our way down to the line for race 1 of 3 here, round 7 of the Competizione Performance League World Series powered by Malwa Transport. Without further ado then, here in Barcelona for race 1, we are green and racing here in Spain. A brilliant start then from the 119, as to be expected. The 119 up and ahead of the number 17, who now starts to pull things back, getting closer to the rear quarter. Following in his midst there, the number 30 down towards turn 1 and 2 down at the L chicane. The number 17 up and alongside, trying to go the long distance up and around the 119. Brooklyn Donkin looking to take the lead off of LePay. It's contact between the pair, and spilling over is the number 17 onto the 30 as a disastrous start peels out from turn 1 and 2. Watching there, it was a moment of contact out through the second part of the Elf chicane. The 119 got off lightly. It was the number 17 that bounced off the side of the Mustang into the number 30 Bentley. Ultimately undid a lot of the progress that he had made over the course of quali. We see here for Brooklyn Donkin now ranks in at 23rd on the field, plumb last as it would happen. But he doesn't seem to be all that alone in that stead, because you can see a lot of action has just kicked off in front of him. As you can see, a storm of steel. Casey Miles makes contact with both the 35 and the 17. Surely that's the end of the road here. A disaster for the number 17 and for the 55, as fate would have it. Getting a glance in here to see the number 96 careening back round, slams the 35 of Potvin, and that in turn collects the number 17 of Brooklyn Donkin. It has been a horrible start to race 1 here for the number 17 and for the number 55, as it would happen. As taking a look right now, as they rank in, there are only 2 of those pro division drivers left in the top 5. The 2 leaders, as it would happen, Christian Lebay in the 119 Malwa Racing Mustang and Jonas Franke in the 413 Black Nitro Racing Porsche. Joey Fisher now ranks in at 3rd outright in the session, leading over Richard Cecil and Cedric Grenier-Massa, who moves to 3rd up and ahead of, as it would happen there, Danny Felix. David Tanguay right behind them. Sergio Belder in 7th overall in the session. Andrew Veldkamp in 8th. And then we see right behind him is the case here from that of Matthew Bedensky, 9th in the session so far. Danny Felix in 10th. JM Quito in 11th. Christophe Dupois, as it happens there, drops down to 13th. Right up in front of him, the twin Lexus of Wright, now up to 12th. It has been a disastrous start then for the pros. We already have 3 pros down and out of this race. Cheeseman, Nikolai and Donkin all out. It has been brutal for the pros. Lord only knows what happened after that opening incident there. We did see a spill down at turn 2, but during the live replays, we can only imagine out through Renault Curve into Repsol is where things went absolutely thermonuclear among the pros. A smaller category as they are compared to the AMs today. A very, very tough outing to kick things off here in Barcelona. We see in the case here of Richard Cecil, second in division right now. You see right behind him is the number 30 of David Tanguay up in the pros. Behind him, Cedric Grenier-Massey. So it's been a very, very tough start to the race today between the pro drivers, and I would even say at passing there, the AMs. We see Danny Felix versus Matthew Badensky down at turn 12. Behind them is Wright, and as it would stand behind him, JM Quito. You see going the long way around here, Badensky over Felix in towards the RACC chicane. We said this would be an area of contention, and I wasn't wrong in that assertion because it is bedlam down to the RACC chicane. Multiple cars collected down there. Get a look at this on the replays down through into turns 14 and 15. We see it starts here. The 505 runs out wide. We also see going for the inside there was Wright on Felix. Then we see clattering him from behind was Quito. Then clattering Quito from behind was Dupois. And it was just a domino effect from that point onwards. We now see in the time since that David Tanguay has gotten up and ahead of Richard Cecil. Now this could work to Cecil's benefit here, because following in the line of the faster Bentley could tow him up towards Joey Fisher and bring him back into the fight for the AM division lead. Now in terms of close by fights, this is one among them, but we also have here Dupois versus Quito for 10th overall in today's race. Behind them you can see a now injured Danny Felix in 12th place. Also a close fight going on here. Ruben Pereira, who didn't set a time over the course of qualifying, now fights with Ivan Sanchez. Getting a look in here though, Richard Cecil hitched his trailer then to David Tanguay's Bentley, but you can see just how quickly the Bentley has made light of the situation in towards Lakaiha. Following here with the number 30, looking to get up and around Joey Fisher in towards turn 11 and 12. I'm still at a complete loss for words on what on earth happened for the pros to find them this scattered among the field. We see going on the inside in towards Eurocar, the 59 left out stranded. So this could be the invitation that Richard Cecil has looked for since the start of this race. We see there from the pit lane, Nikolai and Donkin both out of this. So let's go and catch on board with the Porsche, because things could be getting spicy here in the conversation of not only 4th overall in today's race, but the lead of the AM division here in race 1 of 3. Richard Cecil now at arm's length to Joey Fisher in the lead. After only 6 minutes worth of racing, it's a do or die situation here for Richard Cecil. Even though he's ranked in at pro, he is very much so in the AM category. Again, it was part of that reshuffling that happened at the start of the season. It has given us a very scattered start to today's race. This is one of the closest fights among them. All 3 of the podium members there of the AM division. Joey Fisher, Richard Cecil and Cedric Grenier-Massey. That's much to the chagrin, I would say, of Danny Felix, where things have really only gone from bad to worse from him. From the start of today's race, where he's been caught up in so much trouble from the race start. He's lost the podium. He's been kicked around the block here. It's not been a particularly inspiring start for him. And I'd be hard-pressed to tell you that it's going to get much better with the damage on the front of his car right now. He's just going to have to soldier this one out for the next 30 minutes. And that next race coming up around the corner, he can choose to be a lot more ferocious about his defense of 3rd place. That's the benefit of these 3x40 races. They do get 2 more goes around of this, and you'll see that the racing over the course of today's session will continue to get better and better with each passing installation. You see then from Richard Cecil down here in sector 3 is where he's really got his A game in that number 5. Out through Catalonia. And this is where he's going to find himself at a loss, because the Ferrari is still faster than the Porsche, albeit by about 3 to 4 miles an hour in the top end. That's all the way in the extreme top end here. The engine just having a little bit more to give than the Porsches. That's not going to matter too greatly if Joey Fisher's forced to cut the Elf chicane. We see him bumping over those emergency curves, barely lifted from the throttle. That'll be a bit frustrating when you're in the position that Richard Cecil's in, where he's played things by the books here and now finds himself with Joey Fisher almost flatting it across parts of the track to stay in the fight. But we see it's all for naught, because on the inside and now into the lead of the AMs is Richard Cecil down at Repsol corner. in towards Seat. Number 5 leads over the 59. Number 6 in third in the AMs. Then up in front of them, the top 3 in the pros. 119 from Labay, Franca in the 413, and Tanguay in the number 30. Very early doors casualties then in today's first of 3 races here in the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. We'll catch away there from the fight of the lead in division to catch on to see what other fights are happening around the grid. We see Danny Felix versus JM Quito as it would happen here. The number 985 soldiering up towards the back end of the number 26. We see the case here where these two are going to be fighting as it stands for 7th in division. Worth pointing out as well, amidst obviously the overtake by Cecil against Fisher, Cedric Grenier-Massey sets his sights on 2nd place as Joey Fisher closes into frame there. These two getting closer to each other than either of them are close to the race lead. You see here 2 of the pro cars caught in a pack of AMs. Wright and Jenkins, 13th and 14th, caught between Pereira and Dupois. We see here with the 2 Lexuses, Lexi, I'm not really sure how you'd go about that in a vocabulary term, but regardless of the exit of turn 16, we see here, Wright closing in at a fast rate of knots here on Dupois. Very difficult to make out these two apart from one another, and that's mostly in part to the fact that Lexus has very few livery options in this game. Number 54 on the inside at Elf, up and ahead over the 39. Now, I suppose in the case here of Kyle Jenkins, he's going to be scratching his eyes a little bit because it looks like he's seeing double up in front of him there with 2 Lexus cars, both exactly the same livery and colour. Meanwhile, getting a glance back in at the scope of things up in the top 3, Joey Fisher. I'm not sure what's going on there for his Ferrari, but it's really struggling now, and it's bringing Grenier-Massey back into the mix to contend 2nd place. We'll go to catch on board with these two as things look to be hotting up in the discussion of those podium fights. Now, firmly away from the belief that there will be a fight coming up around the corner for the lead of the AMs, more so for the fight of 2nd, as we quickly see here Dupois v Jenkins. Jenkins up and around the outside and just kept the foot pinned round through Kamsa at turn, they're running out of turn 9 and towards turn 10. You see for Wright, who's up and ahead of Jenkins at this time. 1.5 seconds between the two. We go to catch on board then with that ongoing fight in for the scope of 2nd place in today's race. We see here Joey Fisher versus Cedric Grenier-Massey. It's also worth pointing out from behind here, Danny Felix on the charge to fight with JM Quito and Matthew Bedensky. Looking to make his way up through the field towards 6th place at the best of times here. It's been a great turnaround story for Danny Felix, but he is playing against very adverse odds when you consider not only BOP in today's session that finds BMW only losing a single kilo, where their adversaries at Mercedes and at Nissan will be losing 4 kilos. Aston Martin will be losing 2. It's also a case where when you take a look at the cars in front, Ford gaining only 13 kilos. We've already seen it's going to take way north of 20 kilos to phase the Ford Mustang at this point. Looking further down the line, just to get a quick glance in here. 35 against 800. This is Karina Stinson versus Didier Potvin. We see here from Potvin's point of view, Karina Stinson in his iron sights right now, out through turns 1 and 2, up around turn 3. Now, the Aston Martin we've already seen from Stinson over the course of the season is a very unpredictable sort. The older V12 Vantage, one of the oldest, if not the oldest designs on this grid. 2013 is when that car was first introduced. It's a design that's kicked about now for 13 years. You see running out wide from Repsol. She'll be to the inside down at Seat, but the question is, does she commit to a lunge for the inside? Not by the looks of it there earlier onto the brakes for the number 800. But all is not yet lost when you consider, by nature of having survived on this grid, Karina Stinson is already up quite a fair few positions as it would happen. So then, having a glance in towards today's proceedings, as we do see here Jonas Franca and David Tanguay are about to get into a scrap for 2nd place. We do see from behind here JM Quito versus Matthew Bedensky, Danny Felix and Wright. 4 cars in contention, running out wide. There goes Quito. Bedensky around the outside. Are we about to see a mirror match of the same incident that prevailed here down at the RACC chicane only a few laps ago? Not as it would happen. watching in over the shoulder of JM Quito, who breaks away from this crowd. Let's go and catch on board here with Wright. 3 abreast down the run of the opening straight. We see Kyle Jenkins trying to get up and around Danny Felix. Now we see here 1 BMW, now for the price of 2, trying to go up on the inside of Badensky. Great hustle here so far by the 54. A grand effort by Wright, now into the top 10. Jenkins still on his trails there. Those two doing their best impression of Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher at the Belgian Grand Prix when they were going up and around Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Those who know the clip know exactly what it is I'm talking about. Brooklyn Donkin in chat saying, not the start I was looking for. Yeah, unsurprisingly so. That was a very, very tough break for you there. Unfortunate to see it, but still 2 more goes around. Plenty of opportunities left in today's session. Now, getting a look on board, because this is where we want to go and see up at the forefront of action here. The fight for second. Franca versus Tanguay in the pros. Nearly halfway into today's race. Labay having broken away by nearly 10 seconds over these two. As it would happen. Watching on board with Tanguay. In terms of straight line speed, this is where it all boils down here on this opening straight. One of the longest opening straights of an FIA Grade 1 circuit. I believe there for Barcelona, this is just a little over half a mile, so it's quite an extensive run on that opening straight. That's where the Bentley really gets to spread its wings, but it's a case in the corners right now. The Bentley is feeling a little bit on the sluggish end compared to the Porsche. So this makes a very unique matchup when talking about manufacturer to manufacturer matchups. Porsche that have got all of their eggs in the basket on cornering. Bentley that have got a lot of their eggs in the basket on stability and straight line speed. These two are on polar opposite ends here when it comes to how they handle around most tracks, but it's going to make for very interesting racing to see them still this close to one another. Checking back in with Wright, a man on a crusade here in Catalonia. So now he sets his sights on JM Quito in 9th. He's made light work of this so far, so hats off really to the 54 of Wright. We said that there was certainly the potential for him in today, and now he's showcasing exactly our point, making his way up and alongside JM Quito, but this doesn't seem to be a case where this is a driver just shuffling out of the way. Quito is putting on a fight for this position, still holding the inside for the run up towards Kamsa. This is going to be quite an ambitious run of it. Between Lexus and Ford, Quito still holding ground on the inside there, but runs short when it comes to the momentum. Now inviting in the Ferrari to come up and alongside, and this is Kyle Jenkins, now up to 10th place. Later onto the brakes there, Quito found himself stranded, but he did put on an admirable fight against these two, slowly working their way back up towards the top 5. 24 minutes left to go here in race 1. You see here for Christophe Dupois, he is being intercepted, as it would happen there, by Ruben Pereira. Behind him, Ivan Sanchez. It's been a very big mix-up amongst the grid today, no doubt. As it stands then, your 2 division leads, Christian Labay in Pro, Richard Cecil in Am. When you take a look back to how the first results played out in the first ever 3x40 at the start of this season, this is very on-brand performance we're seeing right now from Richard Cecil. Went back-to-back in the first 2 of 3 races in Silverstone, with Sergio Belda collecting on the 3rd. Is it likely a case that history will have a knack of repeating itself? I'd say keep an eye on Joey Fisher to be that tiebreaker here on what could be a clean sweep coming up for Richard Cecil. In the absence of Zalan Such, this looks to be a clean sweep for Christian Labay. It's worth noting he was 2nd place in every single of those 3 races at the start of the season. It was always a almost photo finish between those two when they were chasing each other down to the line. It was a case where Labay was always the one on the chasing end, with Zalan Such defending for his lead every single time. Down to the line then goes Labay. Behind him we see there it was the 114. Ben Cheeseman adamant to see the checkered flag, 21st on the grid after being one of those early casualties at the start of race 1 today. New fight emerging here. Dupois versus Badensky. Currently 13th overall. That would stand by divisions at least at being 8th. There is still the lingering considerations here of a fight for 2nd between Fischer and Grenier-Massé. That's in the AMS. An actual fight for 2nd could be coming up around the corner, with Tanguay still within 2 seconds of Jonas Franke. Now that's within 1 second as they round into Repsol. Also close fighting going on then, of course, we mentioned was Dupois versus Badensky, and you could see just how quickly the Lexus closes in on the BMW in towards turn 1 here at the Alpha chicane. Now turn 2. Pereira still tucked in behind them. Also worth considering, possible developing fight between Potvin and Black for 17th on the grid. Right now we're watching here Dupois versus Badensky for Division 8th in the AMS. Number 39 versus number 505. And even though these two have been working more as a unit with one another right now, it is worth considering the two stranded pros as part of their own individual fight. That's Wright versus Kyle Jenkins. Now getting up into the halfway mark of race 1. It has been a very interesting start to racing here in Barcelona for the first of 3 outings we have today. We do find ourselves, especially after the opening lap frenzy that prevailed over this circuit, at a very scattered grid in all. You'll hear it in a moment's time that we hit the halfway mark of this session. 20 minutes left to go before the end of race 1. Worth noting here, get a look at this one. Tanguay versus Franke. Now, this is certainly picked back up into the swing of things that we were waiting for it to be here in the talks of that fight for 2nd. On board with Tanguay. Up and around turn 9 at Kamsa. It's worth pointing out that for its strengths, with being, better in the braking and a lot more maneuverable than the Bentley, the Porsche does trade off quite a fair deal of stability. So when the going gets tough, especially with the tyres as hot as they are right now, 31 degrees on track, it is a toastier set of conditions than the last couple of rounds here on the World Series. That Porsche can very quickly start to wrestle you for control. And more often than not, the machine has a way of winning. See such as the case, they're very nearly flicking Franke all the way out through the RACC chicane. We do have the scope of a yellow flag here. It's for the 888 in trouble. Down in the AM category, that's for Ruben Pereira. Down at turn 7 and 8, he's re-emerged to the track there. We're back into green flag conditions for the time being, but that's a rough turn of events for him. We see here with Tanguay versus Franke. The two side by side on the run in towards turn 1. You see there was a bit of contact front to rear between the Bentley and the Porsche out through turn 1 and turn 2. Now up and around turn 3 here at Renault corner. Tanguay now up to 2nd. Franke will be rather frustrated with that. Of course, was the case towards the start of their fight that the Porsche was starting to fight him back after the first half of racing had expired. Now was a case there where in his efforts to try and fight back Tanguay, the Bentley effectively having parked the bus there after the apex. The Porsche's gone right into the back end of him. They're quite fortunate to have not come away from that with any more substantial damage than they have right now. That has sort of kicked a lot of the momentum off of the 413. He's going to have to work quite hard here to get back up and ahead of the Bentley, especially with how fast it is in the straightaways, as we'll see here. And it's a night and day difference. There's just no competition there in the straights. We'll catch on with these two in a moment's time, but taking a look further around the field to see now recently in the mix of a fight there, right up and ahead of Andrew Veldkamp, as it would happen. Actually, no, as it would happen there. He's in behind. So in his efforts to get up and ahead of Veldkamp, he's actually fallen in behind Kyle Jenkins and Andrew Veldkamp himself. I believe there was some complications from down at turn 7. You see here for Jenkins, looking to go up the inside round turn 11 in towards turn 12. We see Wright is barreling up to the outside at turn 12. Furious now after whatever happened in the middle sector to get up and around the 616. Now on the inside at Eurocar to the outside of the RACC chicane. All the way on in through turns 14 and turns 15. Now through to turn 16. This man is rampaging his way out of turn 16 here in sector 3. Cutting away from this fight to see one much closer according to the data here. Stephen Black versus Didier Potvin. This is for 17th on the field. Through to the RACC chicane they go. We'll leave you on board with the 54 here as we cut across to find him. And we'll return to you in just a moment's time, so do bear with. As we do see there behind Brooklyn Donkin trying to unlap himself from Christophe Dubois. So still on board here with Wright in 9th place, 2 seconds off the beat then from Kyle Jenkins in 8th place. Taking a look at the wider scope of the session as we cross past into the last 14 minutes of racing. Still one of the closest fights on track at the moment emerges here in between Didier Potvin and Stephen Black, the 707 and the 35, as we do see here that Donkin is back out lapping the track 9 laps down. Stefan Nikolai rejoins the session here, and the number 55 Mercedes was a very early doors casualty of the opening lap incidents of today's race. Getting a look on board here to go and find the Ferrari of Joey Fisher, now fighting for the lead with that of Richard Cecil. We'll see things from the defending car's point of view. Richard Cecil still fending off the lead of Pro. Joey Fisher looking for his first AM win. Not lead of Pro, sorry, lead of AM. Sorry, the heat is really getting to me here, I must say. I've been keeping that one relatively quiet here, but it is blisteringly hot in this room at the moment, and it is really starting to get to me. Defending the lead of AM, so on the clarification there between Cecil and Fisher. Down through turn 1 and turn 2. Out through turn 3. It's worth pointing out also during this time has been that continued fight between, having a glance in here, it's been very close fighting between an unlapping Brooklyn Donkin and a currently on the current lap 505 of Matthew Budensky. There's also still the fight going on here between Potvin and Black that has started to filter itself out on the opening straight. We see here now
between the 59 and the 5. Looking on board from Richard Cecil's point of view. In the lead of the AM classification here, the 3 pros up in front of them, being Franca, Tanguay and Labay. Starting to see a bit more of an elbows out approach to things from Joey Fisher. Getting a look on here with the number 59 up and around turns 11 and 12. Down the opening straight then. So coming up on the last 10 minutes of racing here in Barcelona. Still watching on for the lead of AM between Cecil and Fisher. Fisher looking for his first win in AM. Cecil looking for yet another on his itinerary. And when you consider these two started on the grid 18 thousandths of a second apart from one another, I think fighting like this was almost inevitable between the Porsche and the Ferrari today. See though, recently, especially out through sector 1, has been a case on this lap here, lap 16. Fisher is starting to lag behind Cecil. Has it been a case where he's pushed a little too hard here, a little too early? And now's a case where he's done his tyres in just in the closing 10 minutes of racing around the corner. We'll catch on with him in a moment's time. We see here the still ongoing fight between Jenkins and Wright for 8th overall in the session. This is for Division 4th in the pros. See, it's not been much better a case here for Richard Cecil when it comes to those tyres. The Porsche is quite notorious for doing its tyres in very early on. You can see it there with the car sliding away from itself at turn 12 in towards turn 13 at Eurocar. This has not been a comfortable run, to say the least, here in the closing 10 minutes of racing for Richard Cecil. But he just has to hold on stronger here for the next sort of 5 or so laps before he sees the checkered flag and picks up yet another win over the course of his conquest of the AM category. Across the line he goes there, and in the last lap was 7/10 faster than Joey Fisher. So there is still some hope here for that number 5. We'll catch on with him in a little while's time. We see here Pedensky v Quito still going on at this time. Was a case where the fight going on behind him was our focal point, that being Black v Potvin, but now 2.9 seconds apart from one another. The chances for these two to scrap are unlikely. We see Ben Cheeseman has since got back up into the top 20 ahead of Karina Stinson, as things would happen there, up and ahead of the Aston Martin. The last interval, having gone up from 1.4 to 1.8 seconds, right, is dropping distance from Jenkins. Let's go and catch on board then with some of the fights still proceeding around the field. Joey Fisher versus Richard Cecil still on the cards here for the lead of the AM category. Number 5 and number 59 still in contention there. Last interval showed 0.8 of a second apart. We see Pedensky v Quito was previously in considerations here, but I'd say this is starting to drop well north of a second between the car in 14th and the car in 15th. Really does seem to be the case here in the closing minutes of today's first of 3 races here in Barcelona, that the presiding fight will be the lead of the AMs. Cecil v Fisher will stay on board then with the number 5. What looks to be continued progress on their chances for further fighting. Triple Eight also in trouble again. That was for Pereira. Same section of the track, but is again back up and running. Getting closer and closer. We're starting to see more confidence ramp up into the number 59 as he continues to pressure the number 5 for that race lead. Now it's going to have to be maybe a Hail Mary solution here coming up around the corner for that of Joey Fisher if he wants to take this race lead off of Richard Cecil, because it's been very calm, very collected and very commanding from the number 5 for the majority of this race. Having since got that lead off of Fisher, Cecil has not let one sign that he could have that slip out of his hands show. Cutting away then from the lead in the AMs to see the lead in the pros, and it has been very, very calm drive here from LeBay. He's had very good pace throughout and looking on the advent of another win. Race win number 3 perhaps coming up around the corner in the next 5 minutes. 10 seconds away from him to make a Malwar 1-2 here in race 1 of 3 at round 7 of the World Series is David Tanguay. Jonas Franke ranks in 3rd. Do appear to have a few blips there on the radar. There was a bit of a connection trouble. Oh, yeah. No, that's a huge chunk of the grid that's just dropped off there. Now down to only, looking here, 17 cars left in this race. That's going to be a rough one. Okay, well, this ought to be interesting. Among those casualties, we've seen that none of the leading cars have been affected on either category. With that, oh, no, yeah, we have seen it now. Yeah, Richard Cecil is now out of this race. Joey Fisher now leads over Cedric Grenier-Massey. That just took a sec to update, and yeah, that's trouble. That is trouble. There might need to be some kind of word there from race control, but we'll still hold our guns on the assumption that the race will continue. But that's heartbreaking for Richard Cecil. The fact that he just held that race with an iron vice over the course of the greater majority of things here, only to have it snatched out of his hands by a bad server. It's a very frustrating element of sim racing. Now, of course, there's not much race control can do about the servers being on the fritz. Of course, they can, you know, coordinate their efforts with the server provider and sort of work out a solution from there. But this is an inevitability in sim racing, and sadly a sign of the times when it comes to the Assetto Corsa Competizione ecosystem. It just simply isn't standing the test of time technologically, with better solutions and better alternatives out there. Yet here on console, and I've said this before, we get none of it. We get the scraps of whatever new tech ends up on the sim racing space. And what's sad as well about these disconnects would be a case that that's now reset their qualifying position, and it's a case where they all start from the back in the next race and the race after that. We see among the drivers to have disconnected there, we can now start to make out an assertion as to how many have been involved. So Pereira, Quito, Sanchez, Belder, and for that matter, Richard Cecil. 3 minutes left to go then in this race. There may be some changes coming up around the corner. The 119 still out on track in the moment. Just under 3 minutes left to go. Leading this race then. And as for Joey Fisher, this has now been somewhat of a Deus Ex for him, because he's been fighting hard for the lead of that race. I don't think he would have wanted it to drop into his lap in this way, as it takes a lot of the mystique out of it. But he'll still be delighted to see his first opportunity of a race win rolling through here in Barcelona. 2.5 minutes left to go. Looking in here to see an ongoing fight. This is for 6th now between Jenkins and Wright. These two have been on quite a journey throughout the grid over the course of today. And now looks to be a case where they'll fight upon that 3rd row for the end of race 1 of 3. draw closer to the last laps of today's race. We see here from LeBay about to start the last lap of racing here in race 1 of 3.
Right, man. Leader is on the final lap. Give it all you can.
16 corners between himself and his 3rd race win of the World Series. So LeBay's on the charge. We'll catch on with him at the checkered flag. Seeing here with Jenkins and Wright. Now curious to get a view in from these drivers here, as we go to quickly make sure we're on with the 119 in a moment's time for the end of that race. Going to catch in with these two here down through the RACC chicane. So they still have one more go around of things here in the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya before the end of racing here in race 1. Plenty of drivers will be less than pleased to see how things have unfolded. We do see for many of them, though, after having suffered those disconnects, are back out and racing. For Richard Cecil, we'll be seeing red in this time, knowing that race win was in the palm of his hands, ripped out of it from the very unfortunate disconnect that he and many drivers on this grid suffered in race 1. But Joey Fisher, he's on the advent of seeing his first ever AM Division win here in the World Series. We'll catch on with him as and when we get the opportunity. From LeBay, he's on his run into the last sector here. Plenty of fights still coming down to the wire. We see among them has been Wright v Jenkins, but also Veldkamp v Felix. So making his way down through to Eurocar. We go to catch back on board then with Christian LeBay. Making his way down through the RACC chicane up towards turn 16 at Catalonia Curve. His 3rd career win here in the World Series at race 1 of 3 today. The checkered flag is out here in Barcelona. LeBay wins in race 1. Great win for him there in the pro category. Taking a look, though, down to the line. Goes 2nd place for David Tanguay. Amalwa 1-2 in pro here in race 1. Jonas Franke will see the scope of 3rd place. Then making their way down to the line, we see here from Joey Fisher, who is only a few corners away from his first AM Division win. Albeit there have been some odd circumstances at play, but he's fought diligently over the course of today, making his way down to the line for race 1 of 3 here at round 7, out through Catalonia Curve. Joey Fisher takes his first win in AM. From behind him, Cedric Grenier-Massey for 2nd. We see from behind them, the fight boils down for 6th between Jenkins and Wright. And they were right on the trails there of a fight for the top 5 with Grenier-Massey only half a second out from him. Had it been one more lap, they'd be right on top of that number 6. But a great fight between those two, having carved their way back up through the field over the course of today's race. Still 2 more of them, though, to follow to the line here. We see from Veldkamp and Felix, 8th and 9th, the two separate by half a second as they hit the checkered flag on race 1. Christophe Dupois looking at the scope of 10th place as it would happen right now. We see making his way to the line. It's been a reluctant day here after what's happened server-wise for Richard Cecil, but he'll see 18th overall in the session today. Across the line from behind him went Christophe Dupois for a Division 5th. Vidensky in 11th overall. Division 6th there. Division 7th for Stephen Black. And Division 8 for Didier Potvin. We'll get the full results up on the left-hand side in a moment's time, but that's the end of race 1 of 3 today. Now, there may be some changes coming up and around the corner because of those server problems. We'll see exactly what changes in the time since. To give you an update, though, on what to expect up and around the corner. We're at the end of race 1. Coming up next is race 2, another 40-minute bout of action here in Barcelona, then race 3 thereafter to bring us to the end of round 7 of the World Series. We'll wait to see that final result come up through in just a moment's time here, but you can see from the pit lane, LeBay wins in race 1. Sometimes there is a bit of a delay in getting those results up. There we see the final result come up for race 1. So your division winners, Joey Fisher in AM, Christian LeBay in Pro. Ford and Ferrari winners by respective category. We've had some great fights throughout today. Some of the closest finishes there coming up from just outside of the top 5. It's between Cedric Grenier-Massey and Kyle Jenkins from 5th to 6th. Half a second, even closer though. The closest finishing margin of race 1, 368 thousandths, right from Jenkins in 6th and 7th. So coming up around the corner then, the grid will form up for the scope of race 2. Another 40 minutes of racing here in Barcelona, with the hopes now on this go around things could be a little bit different in terms of the lap 1 calamity, hoping to avoid a lot of the incidents that prevailed over the start of today's race. And so we'll wait for the time being for that grid to form up. And so we see here on the grid for having a glance in race 2. Now, it is a curious one when you consider up over that front row now that that second place spot is now entirely vacant. That's because we see here for Brooklyn Donkin, there was that disconnect very early on in the race. He starts now among a pack of drivers relegated from their original standings in the grid of race 1 because of those disconnects. Sadly, nothing that race control can do to alleviate that issue for the time being. We see at the forefront of this sort of rear pack is Stefan Nicolai and Ivan Sanchez. Behind them is Donkin, Belder, Cecil, Quito, Pereira and Black. But in the major bulk of the field then, Lebay now still holds on to, of course, that pole position, but Tanguay moves to 2nd, Franca to 3rd, Jenkins to 4th, Cheeseman to 5th, and Wright to 6th. Fisher now starts in a definitive pole position, unchallenged by that of Richard Cecil. Danny Felix moves to 2nd, Cedric Grenier-Massey moves to 3rd, Badensky moves to 4th, Veldkamp to 5th, Potvin to 6th, Miles 7th, Dupois 8th, and Stinson in 9th. Then, of course, you have that sort of rearward pack of cars. You can even see they're separate by a whole car's length, and more so on the run-in towards race 2 today. So we'll wait for the grid to get away onto the start of race 2 today. So catching back on board with Lebay. Now in an unopposed pole position. He's got that whole front row to himself after the disconnect in race 1. Watching on board then with that 119. As we wait to pull away onto formation lap number 2 in today's bout of racing at round 7 of the Competizione Performance League World Series. So beginning that pull-away procedure here onto the start of formation lap number 2. Pulling away goes the 119. And that whole front row is his to command, so it will be very curious to see how the rest of the field falls in line alongside then, because of course now second and third, Tanguay and Franca, as they were towards the trailing end of racing in race 1. Taking a look down through that field then to see some major players to watch out for, and it would be the case here. Wright and Jenkins, of course, they carved their way up through the field. Now they get to start things up towards the front as intended. Keep an eye, though, on that 54. Few positions extra given to him there for the start of today's race. Because of these disconnects here, Nikolai and Donkin among them at this time. Be keeping an eye out then for Ben Cheeseman. Was a bit of a down-and-out performance from him in race 1. Did his best to try and come back through the order, but it was difficult proceedings there for the Lamborghini. So on the run into race 2, of course, as with the case of a lot of the field today, they'll be looking to avoid some of those incidents that prevailed over the opening lap of race 1. Starting from the pit lane is the number 26. Now, I believe, getting a glance in, yes, that's JM Keto. That'll be starting at the back of the field for this race. Going back on in with the number 119 as we continue down through to turn 6 and turn 7. We see a sort of clear line drawn in the sand here between the bulk of pros and the start of AM, with Joey Fisher's bright green Ferrari off in the background, marking the start of that AM grid. It's going to be curious to see how they make up for lost time here in the topic of Stefan Nikolai and Brooklyn Donkin. These two stranded away from the rest of that field in pro, all the way down to the back end after suffering the disconnects over the course of race 1. It's going to be very, very interesting to see the follow-up act here today at race 2. Without further ado then, beginning the procedure once more. 23 drivers in all, 12 on one side, 11 on the other, as we proceed down past turn 16 here in a slightly jumbled order after disconnect in race 1. Coming up around the corner then, 40 minutes of racing here at race 2 of round 7 of the Competizione Performance League World Series, powered by Malwar Transport, for the second time of 3 today here in Barcelona. Down to the line we go. Without further ado, we are green and racing. The 707 picks up a drive-through for position on start, so a rough break there for Stephen Black. It's been a brilliant start, though, for David Tanguay, who breaks away up and ahead of his teammate at Malwar Racing, Christian Lebay, who started from pole position in race 1 and now also for race 2. Tanguay tries his luck to go up and around the outside, has to filter back in right up in front of the nose of Jonas Franke. Right behind him is Wright in 4th place. We said to keep a close eye on that 54, and for good reason. They're already in the top 5 and already facing down the podium. We do see, though, as the order starts to jumble up a little bit there, that's just the data readjusting itself, as now we see a bit more of a comprehensive understanding of where everyone ought to be. 4th place at the moment for Wright. We see the two leading Malwar Racing cars looking to squabble for position here. Tanguay versus Lebay, with Franke right in behind, looking to face both barrels here of the 54 of Wright. Right behind him then is Jenkins and Cheeseman, 5th and 6th. We see Joey Fisher had a great start to race 2, up and ahead of Cedric Grenier-Massey, Danny Felix in 3rd, and Matthew Badensky in 4th. Andrew Veldkamp in 5th as they make their way up and around turn 8 and 9. It's worth pointing out here, getting a look up the order to see already descending upon Badensky is Brooklyn Donkin, a man on a mission here up on the inside of the 505 in towards Lakaiha, looking to join up with the rest of the pro grid as soon as possible. Has wasted absolutely no time breaking a line in through. We see there trouble for Cedric Grenier-Massey as he's washed out onto turn 12 after contact in front. And that brings the 505 back up and alongside the 17 as we go down in towards Eurocar. We see Danny Felix right on the trailing end there of Joey Fisher in the lead of the AMs. And he's got the straight line speed to boot here, getting up and alongside the Ferrari. So this could get rather interesting in the long term here. 985 up and alongside, and now looking to go up and ahead of the number 59. Joey Fisher loses the lead out here off to Danny Felix, or so we're led to believe, going too wide down in towards turn 1. Back in a single file there. Joey Fisher holds very close onto the rear end of the newly leading Danny Felix. Right behind them is Brooklyn Donkin, and it's a frightening sight to see just how quickly the number 17 has carved through the field like a hot knife through butter. Veldkamp now up and ahead of Bedensky to form third in the AMs right now. Right behind him, Sergio Belda and Didier Potvin. Cedric Grenier-Massey, after his collision down at turn 12, finds himself stranded quite a fair distance out from the rest of the field. We see behind him here Richard Cecil and Stefan Nicolai making their way up closer. Christophe Dupois now having fallen down behind Pereira and Sanchez, as now he backs up onto the front bumper of the number 800 of Karina Stinson in 20th. From Stinson's point of view, she's got a good line of sight here to go in between these two, the Lexus and the Porsche, up and around Kamsa. But that's a very narrow gap. They try and bring it in as close as they can to one another there. And with the Vantage still in pursuit, Pereira, the V12 Vantage parked at his rear bumper, and a Lexus parked on his door. It's not a particularly great place for him to be. The 888 tries to hold his ground there, but Stinson runs amok down through Lakaiha. And that V12 Vantage once again kicking her off like an angry Bronco. Down in towards the RACC chicane. Bedensky versus Belda for control of fourth in the AMs. Great start to racing then compared to race 1 today. Much more in terms of battling in that opening fray. We see here right onto the rear bumper of Brooklyn Donkin. Not Brooklyn Donkin, of Joey Fisher goes Brooklyn Donkin, I should say. Making his way in towards Elf chicane, turns 1 and 2. We see they're stranded in the foreground. Is that right? It is. From 4th place on the field, Wright is now all the way out behind the 55 of Stefan Nicolai. His chances in this race crushed in the first 5 minutes. I'm still not yet clear as to how that has happened or with whom. 707 now has no laps remaining to come in and serve that stop go. Otherwise, I believe it is a disqualification around the corner for Stephen Black. You see here for Jonas Franke, caught between a rock and a hard place. Lamborghini at his rear bumper, Ferrari over his front. 5-star looking at a podium here with Kyle Jenkins, now third in this race. Meanwhile, Tanguay and Labey haven't lost each other at the front of that field. 0.8 of a second, and it looks much closer than that on our actual view of their fight up at the front of the field today. Danny Felix leads in the scope of the AMs right now. It's Joey Fisher now finds himself stranded away by a single car. That's for Brooklyn Donkin, having got up past him not too long ago down at Elf. Now sets his sights on Felix. Out through the RACC chicane in towards turn 16 at Catalonia. The opening 6 minutes, Brooklyn Donkin has made light work of this grid and is only 1 straight away here from returning to the bulk of the Pro Pack in 6th place. He's going for it later onto the brakes there, dives for the inside of the corner and just has that straight off the bat there from Danny Felix. Felix clinging onto his back end though, try not to lose sight of the number 17 here, knowing he can use that line for good benefit to keep him further up the road from Joey Fisher. So we could be seeing the scope of 2 new race winners in the AM category. We already had Joey Fisher in race 1, now Danny Felix leads in AM. This is getting to be a rather curious state of affairs unfolding at the forefront of the AM category. Sergio Belda currently 4th on the grid. Turned around in the background, though, that is Cedric Grenier-Massey in even further trouble as he backs up on the nose of the 91 and the number 39, Ivan Sanchez and Christophe Dupois. right behind him there in what is 13th, 14th and 15th overall on the grid. Right now that ranks in at, looking here, 7th, 8th and 9th. We see here, watching on with Ivan Sanchez, this is ought to get rather interesting in the topic of his fight with Cedric Grenier-Massey. Now, it's worth pointing out that BMW is already a little bit shaken up from the start of this race, and the tyres will still be rather hot after a few incidents there. So there is a possible vulnerability to be exploited here. The Mustang, in terms of available grip, we'll catch on with these three in a moment's time. We do see here Stinson versus Keto, as it would happen, for 18th place. We've seen right now for Karina Stinson in race 2, the Aston Martin has been a very problematic car for her, already having kicked her out wide at Lakaiha earlier on in the opening laps of today's race. Meanwhile, Stephen Black serves his stop-go. We find as well the case here for Stefan Nikolai, having dropped now down to 20. Looking here, it was 20th in this race. We see that Wright has come in very early to the pits. Of course, with the damages on the front end of his Lexus, I think right now it's just pulled into the end of the pits. That could very well be the end of his time here in race 2. We'll see, though, as he resides now in the pit lane. So, after nearly 10 minutes of racing, Labay leads over Tanguay, with Jenkins in 3rd, Franca in 4th, Cheeseman in 5th, Donkin in 6th. Then into the bulk of the field for the AMS. Danny Felix leads outright in AMS at the moment, up and ahead of Joey Fisher and Andrew Veldkamp for the podium in the AM category. Sergio Belda in 4th, Badensky 5th, Potvin 6th, Grenier-Massey 7th, Ivan Sanchez 8th, Dupois 9th, and Pereira in 10th. Mals in 11th. We have seen a recent change there. Dupois now and ahead of Sanchez for that 8th place spot. Sanchez 9th, Pereira 10th. Mals in 11th, Keto in 12th, Stinson 13th. Nikolai in that Division 7th is 20th overall in the session. We see Division 14th, Richard Cecil, Division 15th, Stephen Black. We see the 54 soft exit here of race 2 today. It's been a very troubled ensemble for the 54 of Wright. What looked like a promising start came undone down at the Elf Chicane after just a few laps. The opening 5 minutes crushing his chances in today's second of 3 races. Potvin v Badensky, one to consider. This is for the fight of 5th place in Division 35. Looking to do battle here with the number 505. Let's go and catch on board with these two, as this looks to get rather interesting indeed. See that the 55 is now also in an emergency stop from the pit lane, and it looks to be the case where there's been even further issues confounded to the Mercedes of Stefan Nikolai that could force him out of race 2, as it did in race 1. So watching in here with Potvin and his continued efforts to fight with Badensky as they make their way down through Eurocar into the RACC chicane. This has already caught out plenty of drivers over the course of race 1. We now also see in the pit lane is the number 5 of Richard Cecil. And a rather curious turn of events here for that number 5. Cecil is now back into the pit lane, having come to a stop. Appears to have damage there harboring on the front end of the number 5 Porsche. As of yet unknown from our point of view what happened for him. We now see joining the fray on the fight between Badensky and Potvin is Cedric Grenier-Massey to make 2 BMWs and a Ford in this continued fight for 5th. It's been a frustrating weekend then for Stefan Nikolai for Richard Cecil for that matter as well, and also for Wright. We now also see in the pit lane damage on the front end of Karina Stinson's Aston Martin. Brings her into the pit lane, the number 800 in with Aston. Been continued struggles there with the V12 Vantage. A very, very tough machine to work with, historically speaking. Belder versus Veldkamp is one in considerations here. The 65 versus the 616 for a podium in AM. Now, when you consider that Sergio Belder picked up on his first ever win during a 3x40 race weekend, this is worth keeping close on the cards because Belder is showing some great promise here. If podiums are the next in his objectives, there is no saying whether or not he won't be able to find himself in race-winning contention by the end of this round. More on that, though, later on. We see here, now having got up past Didier Potvin, is Cedric Grenier-Massey now looking to do battle with Badensky to go to catch on board with these three. Cutting away from the point of view of the Ford to go and catch the point of view from the BMWs. Seeing here from Cedric Grenier-Massey, wrestling the controls out through turn 16. Is losing a lot of momentum there off the exit of Catalunya to keep with Badensky. And that last lap was faster by about 0.6 of a second, but not that it particularly matters here on this straight because he finds himself still without a line on the run in towards turn 1. It's worth pointing out there, Badensky goes far earlier than Grenier-Massey onto the brakes into turn 1 and 2. Now currently in the pit lane, number 5, number 55, number 54, and number 800. After 14 minutes of racing here, coming up on the halfway of race 2. Been a tough weekend for those lot. Just under 26 minutes left to go, and we're seeing here for Badensky routinely being challenged every step of the way now by that of Cedric Grenier-Massey. Taking a look in, this is still one of the closest fights on the field right now, if not the closest, as it would stand among the rank and file of today. This is for 5th place in category between Badensky and Grenier-Massey and Potvin for that matter. It is worth considering the 35 still part of this fight. Within a half of a second there, and the Mustang can more than definitely keep up in the straights with the BMWs. Down through turn 1 and 2, we go into turn 3 at Renault Corner. Badensky's done well to hold this top 5 so far, considering he, like Grenier-Massey, is quite new to this season, new to this grid, as it would happen. It does make drivers like these very interesting case studies when you take a look at drivers that have joined into a grid and they're quite solid ability. Now, they're obviously not going into this with the expectation that they're going to go and lead championships. It's a case we're taking a look back through the last couple of rounds here for these two. They are having a glance in. For Grenier-Massey, he made his debut 2 rounds ago. I believe that being the same story here for Danny Felix, who currently leads here in this race. He made his debut last round. And in the case of Badensky, also made his debut 2 rounds ago. And it's curious to see because it's very easy to take a situation where you take a alien level driver, a platinum tier driver, you drop them onto any grid and they'll get on just fine because you're dropping them in a grid that they'll more than likely be up towards the front of. They've got 1, maybe 2 drivers to worry about. But it's when you take these drivers, the ones in the middle of the bell curve, these very exceptional talents, but not ones that are outright leading races. This is a category leader we're looking at here with these new drivers. These are absolutely category leaders in AM. I would not be surprised if by the end of this season, one of these two comes home with a race win. We're already seeing that in progress here towards the halfway mark for one of the newer drivers of the assortment in AM, that being Danny Felix, who made his debut last round. We also see him race over on Fatch GT which is, I said in the last round, I knew I recognized the name from somewhere. Yes, he races over on Fatch GT, of which we are still covering Season 10 live exclusively on TRTN. It's unique to watch these drivers that are middle of the bell curve, these sort of category leaders come into a grid, because you see them really have to get knee deep in it. It's not a simple case where you're dropping them in at the front and they're dominating championships. This isn't a situation where you take a championship winning driver, you drop them into another grid and they'll get on fine. As I mentioned before, because they'll be at the front. They've not got much challenging them throughout that run of the championship. But it's when you get these drivers that are on their level, on Badensky's level, on Grenier Mass's level, on Felix's level, where they can really get stuck in, and it's wonderful to see how they interact with the rest of that field. You see Zwanam in chat. That's, I believe, Richard Cecil saying, what a mess. Yeah, it's been a rough weekend here. I'll not lie about that one. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been rough. It has been rough. But chin up, I would say. In the same way that I've said to others, it's chin up. There's not really much consolation I can provide. Otherwise, it's a bit of a conflict of interest if I go start playing favourites with drivers. But still, it's not been the greatest of weekends, and but there's always the next race, I think, in that regard, and you're still leading the championship, so it's sort of a case now. I think baseline is just getting another race finish in and take whatever points you get and go with that. It's a case that it's definitely been down and out. Yeah, still race 3, of course, still race 3. We've seen in the case of the number 54. So we finally got word from Wright as to what happened down at turns 1 and 2. And he said his race has been over because of Jonas Franke. And a big ticket is going, now I'm saying that in quotation marks, big ticket is going to be placed. So this is going to be a rather interesting post-race investigation. And I don't envy the role that Race Control has, having previously done post-race investigations myself. I really don't pity what it is you're going through, or envy for that matter. As we see going up the inside here, Veldkamp versus Belder. This is for the podium in AMS. It's worth pointing this one out. Malwar Racing versus Holkianos. When you talk back into the team's championship in the AM category, these are your two industry leaders. The Holkianos Motorsports team and the Malwar Racing AM division. We've seen there, great move commanded by Sergio Belder. Now onto the podium here in race 2 of 3. Just coming up on 20 minutes left to go. Is there chance here for fight back by Andrew Veldkamp in towards turn 10 at Lakaiha? Sadly not the case this time. Oh my god, how bright do they want it to be there? My goodness. Just gonna look at this. Sorry, this is kind of an unnecessary replay, but how bright do they want the reflection effects to be? I mean, there's a subtle reflective surface to let you know where the sun is located on the track. My goodness. That is obnoxiously bright. Oh, we've got to have some fun here as we wait to see some more fighting coming up from the rest of the field. It is a case now in the time since the Cedric Grenier Masse has dropped off behind Didier Potvin, who now continues to return to fighting form against Badensky for the last of those top 5 positions. Also going on in the background, Sanchez versus Dupois at the halfway. These two fighting as it happens here for the control of, just getting a look through, this is 8th place in the AMS between Dupois and Sanchez in towards turn 1 and 2. Now, there are several fights going on amongst the grid at the moment. There is actually one also going on amongst the pros here. Brooklyn Donkin versus Ben Cheeseman. Two drivers we had routinely seen share the grid over on the NLRL Sunday League. Also worth pointing out here, making his way up and around traffic, Jonas Franke, now 4th in this race. You might catch on board with that fight amongst the pros if it shows signs of progressing. We'll see here, though, for the time being, Potvin versus Badensky for Division 5th. You see, though, having a bit of a cropper there out through turn 7 and turn 8. Stability compromised there on the Mustang. It's a rare thing to see. The Mustang, usually quite a steadfast vehicle on the curbs. This track is sort of one of the only locations out there that can make the Mustang flinch the way that it does. We see here for Dupois losing distance up over Ivan Sanchez off of Campsa in towards Lakaiha down at turn 10 here in sector 2 and 3. So out past the halfway mark of today's race, let's get a look at the current running order. We see Labay in the lead, Tanguay in 2nd, Jenkins in 3rd, Franke 4th, Cheeseman in 5th, closely behind him then by half a second and less. So away here is Brooklyn Donkin in 6th. We see now descending upon that 114 out through turn 1 and 2. We'll stay on board with these two here as we continue the rundown of the order. Danny Felix in 7th and leading in division then. On that division podium for the AMS is Felix, Fischer and Belder. Then in division 4th is Andrew Velkamp, 5th for Badensky. As we see there, going for the inside for 5th place overall is for Donkin v Cheeseman. Out through Repsol into Sayat, looking for a switchback. It's contact between the 114 and the 17 as they make contact down at Sayat corner. Watching in here, you can see it was a very elbows out approach to defense here by the 114 of Ben Cheeseman. Could that have been considered moving under brakes? I'm not 100% certain. Of course, he had that one swerve allowed in. The other one was him just sort of going in towards the racing line. If he had held that straight line out, there wouldn't really have been much a corner to take. That's a tough one. Very, very tough one indeed. So then, looking down through the order, Cheeseman in 6th, Felix leading, Fischer in 2nd, Belder in 3rd, Velkamp 4th, Badensky in 5th, Potvin in a close 6th place, Grenier Massey in 7th, Sanchez, as it would stand there, 8th, up and ahead of Dupois in 9th, Quito in 10th, Pereira in 11th, Mals in 12th, Black in 13th, Stinson in 14th, and as it stands there, 3 soft DNFs from Cecil, Wright and Nikolai. Current closest fights on the track at the moment. We have one going on here. Sanchez v Dupois. Also further up the road, Potvin versus Badensky. And as we just saw a moment ago, was Donkin v Cheeseman. But that ended rather explosively just before we cross in to the last 16 minutes of racing. Now, we'll catch back on board here with that of Didier Potvin. This ought to be a rather interesting battle to see. Going to catch on board with the Mustang. We'll leave you on board with him for just a moment's time as we'll be back in just a second. We're on board, though, with Potvin. So still watching on board then with Didier Potvin. It's worth noting in the last lap has started to bleed time away there. 900ths slower than Badensky in front. And their continued fight for an outright 11th place. You see those super late onto the brakes for the number 35 down through to Elf. And turns 1 and 2. Really trying to get stuck into this fight now, knowing that his time is starting to slim up. And also there's an increasing amount of pressure from behind as rapidly approaching him the number 6 of Cedric Grenier Massey with BMW. Looking around the field then to see where the next nearest fight may be coming from. This is still one among them. So see the emergence again of a fight here. JM Quito versus Christophe Dupois. 7 tenths in closing between the 26 and the 39. 14 minutes left to go here in race 2 of 3. cutting back away then from the fight between JM Quito and Christophe Dupois. We now see continued advance here in the Badensky, Potvin, Grenier Massey fight. This is for currently holding on to the last of those top 5 spots in AM. Badensky has done so far so good. Potvin on the approach and Grenier Massey in his slipstream. This is going to become very, very close very, very shortly. Out through turn 1 into turn 2, now up towards turn 3 off of Elf into Renault. We do have the scope of a yellow flag, and it is for Jonas Franke. The 413 spun around off the exit of Repsol. As it appears, front end damage as well. Into the wall goes the 413, makes contact with the wall. Big, big trouble there for Jonas Franke. Drops out of the top 5, drops out of the pro standings as it would happen there. In behind, looking at it, getting up past him was the last of the podium sitters in AM, Sergio Belder. Big trouble there for Black Nitro Racing Porsche. That's been great news though for Brooklyn Donkin. He's now not only in amongst the top 5, with 12 minutes left to go, 6 seconds to cover. He could try to push here for a podium. The chances, though, are slimming up by the minutes. We see here for Badensky versus Potvin versus Cedric Grenier Massey. These three still totally enraptured on their fight for a Division 5th. And I just still can't get over how much sunlight do they need on that part of the track. My goodness. We see here Cedric Grenier Massey looking to go up and alongside that of Didier Potvin. Tried for it around the outside to give himself the inside for this part of the RACC chicane, but has to single file back in behind the number 35, down in through to turn 16. Cutting away from these three, just to quickly glance in on the JM Quito v Christophe Dupois fight. We see with Quito in front of Dupois now, 15th and 16th overall in the session. They file out of the RACC chicane. Some dust kicked up in the eyes there of Didier Potvin by Matthew Badensky in front. You see for Cedric Grenier Massey really slingshotting it in through now at turns 1 and 2, throwing absolutely everything he can into the last 10 minutes worth of performance here in race 2. Now bear in mind there it is always still race 3 coming up around the corner. So if you can't get him here, he's absolutely going to try and get him in the next, because these drivers now have 2 races under their belt over the course of today's round to get themselves accustomed with this track and its various intricacies and how it works with their car. So this 3rd race coming up could very well be the sharpest on record here in Barca for this season. You see though for Grenier Massey starting to lag behind Potvin, who in turn is lagging behind Badensky. I think it's just a case here of keeping your head low, keeping things nice and calm. Badensky hasn't really had to do a great deal here in terms of defense, with the other two squabbling with one another. Just keeping himself out of trouble has been more than enough of a winning strategy to maintain a top 5 here in race 2. Recently developing fight here, Stephen Black versus Karina Stinson. Aston Martin and BMW in contention here for what is division, having a glance in there. That's division 13th. We're talking here between the 707 and the 800. Behind them, the lapping number 30 of David Tanguay. Blue flags being shown. Yep. Oh man, it's been a long weekend. Being shown for these two. We see here Potvin throwing absolutely everything, much as the case for Grenier Massey is the case here for the 35, throwing absolutely everything they can now in the last 10 minutes at Badensky to try and get him to crack here. Question is, will their efforts be in vain? I mean, this is actually bringing them closer in a possible contention here of a Division 4th, because just emerging into frame, that's the 616 of Andrew Veldkamp, currently in 4th in the AMS. We see him run out wide here from Seat. That is giving a lot more credence over to the possibility of Badensky moving to 4th place and introducing yet another factor into this already complex fight. As we see Cedric Grenier Massey just got up past Didier Potvin in towards that division, looking there, Division 7th. Division 6th, sorry, with Potvin now down to 7th. With a recent slip onto the gravel, out of Kamsa in towards Lakaiha. That could still find it in the room for some fight back here by Potvin. Round the outside, couldn't hold it though. As we see up in front, going for 4th place. It's contact there between Badensky and Veldkamp. Disaster down at turn 12 between Ford and BMW. And Potvin collected in the mix. Through goes Grenier Massey, up to 4th. A disastrous turn of events there in the closing 8 minutes of racing. Not one that I imagine Cedric Grenier Massey is going to be looking too badly upon, given the fact that it's just given him the scope of 4th place. With 3 cars collected there, Veldkamp, Badensky and Potvin. It also invites in now Ivan Sanchez to the mix to see what he can make of the situation. Now having advanced him to Division 7th with 6th in his iron sights with Potvin in front, Sanchez has the chance for a possible top 5 here in race 2. 7 minutes left to go. Watching here with Ivan Sanchez, and this is a rather unique point of view to be seeing. Sanchez carving his way into a possible top 5, 6th in his sights. There goes up and around the outside down at Sayat corner. It's a risky one here for Sanchez, but at his home race, he is not looking to disappoint and going the long way around. Now through turn 6 into turn 7. Easy move there for 6th. Next in his sights, 5th place. It's going to be a tall order, though, to match so far what has been great defense by Matthew Badensky. We'll see what he can make of it in the long term. We see for Potvin having dropped in now behind Sanchez. Now has to worry about possible fight here from Veldkamp. And Quito right behind. We're seeing here the 2 leading teams of the AM Championship clash heads here for the last of those top 10 positions. 6 minutes left to go. Holkianos versus Malwa. It's worth pointing out here up at the front of the field, Joey Fisher is looking to fight for the race lead off of Danny Felix. And things are starting to hot up at a very fast rate here. Let's go to catch on board with the Ferrari up at the forefront of action in the AM categories. We do actually quickly see on the recent update there of the Black v Stinson fight, some exchange up through turn 6 and now through turn 7 as the BMW nearly hits the wall. Watching here, Joey Fisher fighting for yet another race win. This one a lot more gratifying than the last because he's had to fight all the way here to what looks to be closing in on the last couple of laps of racing just around the corner for him to hold the mantle of a possible race win. Could it be Danny Felix? Could it be Joey Fisher? There is a new winner to be made here. We've already seen it from Fisher. Could it be 2 or could it be a new one for Danny Felix? Only time will tell. It's worth pointing out if these 2 trip over each other hard enough, it could very well invite in Sergio Belda to pick up on his career 2nd here in the AM category. Also, it's worth pointing out, as we mentioned earlier, Belda has already proven himself to be race-winning material in the 3x40 layout. He did so in Silverstone. Do not count out for the slightest of moments here, that number 65, on picking up where these left off. See though, Danny Felix kept things nice and cool there. Finds himself 4 tenths up the road, 410 thousandths to be more specific, ahead of Joey Fisher in the last lap just gone, onto lap 20 of race 2 of round 7. 4 minutes left to go, so we are approaching the end of days here on race 2. Getting a look further around the field just to quickly see the scope of that fight. I believe 4 or 5 cars in all now at this length. Sanchez and Quito looking to go toe-to-toe with Potvin and Veldkamp. Sanchez recently having been forced back down behind his teammate. It's JM Quito's opportunity now to take the fight to Malwa Racing's AM division. You see side by side there between Veldkamp and Potvin, the 12th overall on the grid. Up and around Seat corner, in towards turn 6. 3 minutes left to go in race 2. Getting closer and closer than JM Keto. Sizes an opportunity here off of Andrew Veldkamp. It gets a little bit ropey there off the exit of turn 7. Contact at turn 8. What on earth was Veldkamp thinking of there, closing in so quickly? Out through turn 9, you can see that Mustang's all over the shop here. On the run up towards turn 10, also running out wide in the background was that of Ivan Sanchez. In towards Lakaiha. JM Keto has the chance here, going up the inside. The 616 sizes up room for a switchback. Up and around turn 11, in towards turn 12, to the inside. The number 26, can he hold it? More contact between himself and Veldkamp. Over the span of lap 20 here, a few biffs and bangs between Malwal Racing and Holkianos in their control of these top 10 positions in AM. Right now, filing in for control of, looking here, 7th place. 2 minutes left to go. And it is far from over between these two. Keto versus Veldkamp. As we enter the opening straight, down towards turn 1 off the exit of turn 16. 2 minutes left. Not far then from starting that final lap is the number 119. Will bring us in towards the end of race 2. We do see that's trouble for the 54, and Wright is off at the RACC chicane, as it would appear, yet we cannot seem to locate him physically. The 54 is somewhere stranded off the exit of the RACC chicane. We see they're going out past is Brooklyn Donkin. We've seen already from the 119 starting the last of the laps of race 2. Cutting back in to see the fight of 7th here between JM Keto and Andrew Veldkamp. As one of the latest on this field, up out of turn 8 where they made contact in the last lap, up round turn 9 at Kamsa. Still holding his ground then, JM Keto on flying form here. His teammate Sergio Belda looking at a podium. Keto looking at 7th, going for the inside though. A very late lunge by Veldkamp up on the inside at Lakaiha forces Keto all the way off track. The 26 is going to frown upon that move quite intently off the exit of round 7, race 2. As that did really fall in to be quite a bit of a dirty move there, forcing him all the way off the track past the apex. We see being forced to cut the RACC chicane there, JM Keto. And for his efforts, he picks up a drive through. That is pure frustration you're seeing there off of the number 26. Gut-wrenching as it would happen there. LeBay not far then from the checkered flag, as one of the most recent fights amongst the field has come to an abrupt and shocking close. Down through then to the RACC chicane. LeBay already picked up on his 3rd of the season here, but as he makes his way down through the RACC chicane for the last time here on race 2, the checkered flag is risen to meet him again. The 119 down to the line for a back-to-back winning streak here in Barcelona. His 4th of the season. LeBay wins in race 2 in Pro. Tanguay to the line for 2nd. Jenkins puts 5-star on the podium here in race 2 in the 113. Great hustle from Ferrari in today's race. Making his way to the line then, Brooklyn Donkin. Redemption out of race 1. Race 2 gives him a top 5. Great result then from the number 17, carving his way through the field for that one. Absolutely white-knuckle performance from Donkin. We see down to the line comes Ben Cheeseman for the last of the top 5 positions in Pro. But Danny Felix is but moments away of joining the winner's circle in the AM category. We've already seen then a win from LeBay in the Pro in this race. Down to the line then, Danny Felix takes his first win in AM. A brilliant performance here in race 2 by the number 985. 2 new race winners here in Barcelona. Joey Fisher in race 1, Danny Felix in race 2. And there is still race 3 set to come. What a performance by the 985. He battled very, very closely there with Joey Fisher. Sergio Belda collects on the last of the podium positions in AM. Brilliant performance by Holkianos today at their home race here in Barcelona. Even though, if we want to get more specific, having known this team for a while, their home race is actually a little closer to Valencia at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. given the fact, looking at the calendar, that it sadly isn't on this calendar. This is as close as it dare get for these guys, but they've still put on a phenomenal performance in race 2. We'll get the full results through in a moment's time as we see there, coming to the end of their fighting, was Potvin, Veldkamp, Sanchez and Quito. I mean, it is a very reluctant feeling at the end of this race here for JM Quito, knowing what he's been through there, knowing the kind of fighting he's had to put up with, along with that of Andrew Veldkamp for control of that Division 7th, and it's all come away at the worst possible time for him. As we wait then for the end of this race. So at the end of race 2, Christian Lebay, your winner in Pro. Danny Felix on his first win in the World Series takes it home here on race 2 in the AMS. Coming up around the corner then to bring you back in line with the proceedings of things up towards the last race of today's round. Taking a look then onto the regulations coming away from race 2 into race 3. Only 40 more minutes left here in round 7 of the Competizione Performance League World Series. Final result to come through in just a moment's time then to get full confirmation of everything that has happened over the course of this session. You can see for the most part what's going on there on the left-hand side, but I believe that 30-second penalty is still yet to have applied for JM Quito, so we'll just wait to see what that's looking like. And there we see the final result come in. That pushes JM Quito down to 17th on the grid overall. You see, though, the division winners, Lebay and Felix. As for division podiums, Lebay, Tanguay and Jenkins in Pro, Felix, Fischer and Belder in AM. In terms of the DNFs, you can see there Wright, Cecil and Nikolai. And there you can see the full scope of the grid. 20 cars finished of 23 in race 2. Coming up around the corner then, race 3 here of round 7 of the World Series. And to give you a reminder, in case you missed it in the first news bulletin, sign-ups for GT4 Pro-Am Cup America are available for Season 4. They're already open, with the season set to start on June 2nd on the Eastern Standard Time, whereas if you're competing from Europe or Great Britain, it'll be on the 3rd in the early hours of the morning. So we wait then for the grid to form up, and much as the same issue has been for that last grid, it's a case where a lot of those drivers who qualified higher earlier in the session will not see those results return. It's a sad reality of how this game processes results. If you disconnect, it completely forgets what your qualifying results look like. Now, that's different in case you left the session and joined back, as it happens in free practice and qualifying, because that will still retain the time. But after those times have come in, if you disconnect, those times are gone. And sadly, that'll mean for a lot of the drivers who suffered disconnects in race 1, they'll still find themselves planted towards the back of the field for this 3rd and last race of today's round. Seeing then as we descend into what looks to be getting close to dusk conditions here, getting just right close to nighttime. So you see conditions have now started to drop temperature-wise, down from 31 degrees on track to only 15. So in this last race, we could very well see the tyres last a great heap longer than they did in the last 2 races. Lebay still on pole position, with Tanguay 2nd, Franca 3rd, and Jenkins in 4th, Cheeseman in 5th, Wright in 6th, Fischer 7th, Felix in 8th, Grenier Massey in 9th, Podensky in 10th, Potvin in... Veldkamp in 11th, Potvin in 12th, Miles in 13th, Dupont in 14th, Stinson 15th, and Sanchez in 16th, Donkin in 17th, Belder in 18th, Richard Cecil in 19th, and Ruben Pereira rounds out the top 10. Black in 21st, Quito 22nd, and Nikolai in 23rd. So we just wait now, and we'll be back to you in about 2 minutes for the start of the formation lap here for race 3 of round 7. So then 30-second warning coming up around the corner here. We'll be going on board with LeBay, the pole sitter for the third and final race of today. We are, I'd say, much further away from dusk conditions. We didn't get a full view of the sky. It's 9:02 p.m. local here in Barcelona. We are in nighttime conditions at play for the last race of this round. Continue to watch on there over the rear view, as pulling away onto the rest of the field goes the 119 of LeBay. Just updating then the winning, the sort of winners graphic as it would happen there. Now heading in towards this third and final race today, getting a look at the previous winners now, seeing now added in round 7 race 1 and round 7 race 2. We can see that's been back-to-back wins in pro for Christian LeBay, but in the AMS there's been 2 new race winners there. And they join the likes of Sergio Belda, Richard Ciso and Everaldo dos Santos to bring the current winning tally up to 5 unique names in this championship, with Joey Fisher and Danny Felix joining the fray over the course of the first 2 races of today. It has been fantastic to see there down in the AM category. It's been much to the chagrin, though, of that number 5. Bear in mind, a lot of what's happened to him today has not been his fault. In the case of that disconnect that has sort of kicked everything else off as it goes, then it's been the catalyst event of his struggles over this weekend. As things would still happen for Richard Ciso, if he can just place in more points here, he'll be able to nullify some of the impact here on his lead of the AM Championship. Returning back to normality in the next round, things could be getting a little bit lighter for that number 5, as we do see firmly now nighttime conditions. For the last 40 minutes of racing today, Stephen Black starts from the pit lane, as it would appear. In a curious case here on this 23-car grid, he starts right at the very back of it. Making their way then down towards the RACC chicane once again. It's worth noting in that last race we saw a brilliant start from David Tanguay. With that clear line of sight, no car on the left-hand side of LeBay in front of him. That normally would have been Brooklyn Donkin. This is going to be very interesting to see. Could it be second time's the charm here for Bentley? It's worth noting Tanguay still looking for his opportunities here, where he's collected recently on a win of the GT4 Pro-Am Cup. Can the World Series be the next thing on his bucket list? Making his way down towards the line then. 23 cars in all, 11 on one side and 12 on the other, as we make our way down to the line here. 40 minutes of racing set to follow at the last of 3 races of the World Series by Competizione Performance League. And without further ado, we're green and racing here in Barcelona for the last time today. And as expected, a great start there by the number 30, even better than the last race he's had there. Now up and ahead of LeBay on the run in towards turn 1 and 2. LeBay will be fighting for the inside as we make our way into the Elf chicane. We see right along with them is Jonas Franke. Up and alongside him is Wright. We see for the case of the number 30 was on the inside of turn 2, now to the outside at turn 3. A Malwa 1-2 governed right now between LeBay and Tanguay, but as Tanguay collects the marbles and runs all the way out at Renault corner, he swings back over the nose there of Jonas Franke to eliminate any chances of him having that position swiped off of him down at Repsol. A very vibrant start then from the pros. We see here for Franke looking to go up the inside on Tanguay. Couldn't find it in that go around at Sayat corner. Leaves the door open for an advance by Wright, who's right on his tail as it would happen, with Jenkins on his tail, Cheeseman on his. Right behind Danny Felix. Leads up over Joey Fisher. So Danny Felix leading that charge over Fisher. We see Badensky, as it would happen there, was momentarily in the scope of third. We see now, actually, no, yes, he is still in third. My mistake. Right behind him, though, is the recent shift. As we see right on top of these drivers is the case here we're watching from that of Brooklyn Donkin. See a big shift up on the grid there. That's rather confusing. We see now it's actually Cedric Grenier-Massey in third, Badensky fourth. Donkin now up and ahead of Badensky, so that puts a bit of a gap on the 505. That invites in, you can see right behind him there, Richard Cecil from fifth in the AMS, looking for redemption after troubles in race one. We see the 17 and the 50, not the 505, sorry, the 6 go side by side. The 505 right behind them with the number 5 on their trails. There we see the yellow flags out, and for who is it precisely? It's the 30. It's David Tanguay, washed out at the RACC chicane. The Bentley is in jeopardy after the first lap of racing here in Barcelona race 3. Jonas Franke drops down to third place as looking here, Wright goes up to second. Redemption for race 2 then in the eyes of the 54 as he leads up over the Black Nitro Racing 413 Porsche. Jenkins on the Porsche's trail there. Collected on a podium in race 2, looking for another to add to his collection here. The 113 in pursuit, right behind him the 114. We see Danny Felix and Joey Fisher, then Brooklyn Donkin, swift to join the top 5 not too long from now. Cedric Grenier-Massey right behind, and now we see in the case here that Richard Cecil has already cleared up and ahead of Matthew Badensky, so third place is in his iron sights right now with 2 new drivers in front of him. It's inconsequential to his control of the championship, as now he's outscoring any driver who would stand in his way. We see though into the wall, trouble up in front, and for who? Who was that there in trouble? It was the 985. Danny Felix in trouble. We've already seen trouble there for Tanguay. Now trouble for Danny Felix as he drops away from the lead. Fisher takes up the helm of the lead. Grenier-Massey to second. Cecil to third. It is on the table here. Cecil could turn this round into a race win. And if he does, it would be one of the greatest charges we have ever seen from the American talent in the number 5 Porsche. He's not too far off the chances right now. Grenier-Massey next in his iron sights, up in front of him Brooklyn Donkin, who is quickly hounding there onto Joey Fisher. We see Grenier-Massey had a bit of upset there at the RACC chicane. That's going to leave him stray down at the Catalunya curve, turn 16, out onto lap 3. A very dramatic turn here in race 3, looking back up into the pros to find the current ongoing fight for the podium. Jonas Franke runs all the way out wide, and descending upon him like a bird of prey goes Kyle Jenkins for third place. Almost instant move there after the 413's troubles down at turns 1 and 2. Ben Cheeseman now sets his sights on a 4th place. Looking here, Fisher v Donkin in recent developments down through to Repsol at turn 4. Brooklyn Donkin looking to join the fight here from 6th on the field. He's gunning for another top 5 in this race as he did in race 2 of 3 today. And now that Joey Fisher is officially behind him, there is nothing left to stand in the way between Cedric Grenier-Massey and Joey Fisher at the front of the AM category, nor is there anything left to stand in the way between Brooklyn Donkin and Ben Cheeseman. As we see it though, Cheeseman's got his hands full already, fighting with Jonas Franke for 4th up in the pro category, down through to Lakaiha, turn 10, now up through to turn 11 and turn 12. Other fights going on at the same time here. We're seeing a very close one in the makings amongst quite a few of the AM cars. We see for Stefan Nikolai making his way up through the AM cars at this time. He's one of the pros in the 55. Up and ahead there of JM Keto. Next in his iron sights is Matthew Badensky. It's worth pointing out there, JM Keto, part of the top 5 in AM. We see sliding out wide though, goes to 55. It's been a down and out day here for the number 30 Tanguay, out of race 3. Hugging right onto the rear bumper of that 55. is JM Quito in the number 26 Holkianos Mustang, now side by side with Stefan Nikolai up and ahead of the 55 as we make our way into the braking zone here at turn 1. What is the chances for Nikolai to hold ground of position? He makes contact there with JM Quito down at turn 2. That invites in Andrew Veldkamp, swings on through to take the position for his very own. Nearly leaves the door open long enough for Didier Potvin, of which could very well be getting a move here on Quito in a moment's time. Side by side off the exit of Renault into Repsol. The 26, as late as it dare go onto the brakes, but it might be too late for him here. The 35 still holds ground. A little bit of a bump there off the midway of that corner. And Quito falls in behind. After one fell swoop incident down at turns 1 and 2. Looking up in front. Very close fighting at hand here between Bedensky and Fischer. It is worth pointing out, Richard Cecil now moves up to second. Cedric Grenier-Massey up to first. It's worth pointing this out because Joey Fischer has dropped from the lead of this race to third. A fall from grace here for the 59 as now Bedensky sets his sights on a podium. This is the mother of all Deus Ex Machinas here for Richard Cecil. He could not be given more of an open door to lead once more in the AMS after everything that has gone through over the last 2 races for him. This may very well be the mother of all redemption drives when you consider that his qualifying times were deleted after his disconnect during race 1. It put him on the back foot for race 2. He was down and out of that one. But here in race 3, he could very likely, given that it's only been 8 minutes so far in race 3, turn this round into a race win. Only time will tell. We'll keep an eye on the situation as it progresses. We see for Quito v Potvin, this is currently in the stead of 6th place's fight in the AM category. 2 Mustangs head-to-head here. Of course, we saw the case for JM Quito. There's contact between himself and Stefan Nikolai down at turns 1 and 2 that kicked off this fight between both he and both of the Maloir Racing AM cars of Veldkamp and Potvin. We see here Sergio Belda versus Casey Malles. This is for overall 17th place, as it would happen there 11th in the AMS. You see for Malles side by side here with Belda. Belda's got the inside. Malles still on the racing line, just couldn't commit all the way to the line there with the Ford parked on the apex. Struggles there between the pair of them as they make their way up through to turn 6, now to turn 7. The exit of turn 7, the Mustang with the better of 2 on exit. We see as well progressing into a newly found fight here. Both Potvin, Veldkamp and Quito, 3 Mustangs in contention for that division 5th. Bedensky currently in 4th. We did see somewhat of a bounce there for one of the Mustangs. I believe it, yes, was the case here for Potvin, but he's not had any real major stability loss thereafter. Right now, we are seeing the formation of a brand new 4, maybe even 5 car fight for 4th place in the AM category. Bedensky, Veldkamp, Potvin, Quito, and Sanchez. Joey Fischer nonetheless maintains 3rd. Richard Cecil's in 2nd, but he's off by 1.6 seconds to Cedric Grenier-Massey, who could be looking at his first opportunity of a race win. That would make 3 new race winners in 1 triple header, an unseen statistic here on Competizione Performance League since the first triple header was ran in the trailing end of the Jaguar GT3 Revival Series. Veldkamp under immediate pressure there from Didier Potvin behind him. 35 hounding him for position of 5th. He himself hounding Bedensky for control of 4th. Bear in mind, this is only the opening 10 minutes of racing we see in the pit lane then. It looks like DNFs for both Stephen Black and David Tanguay here in race 3. 119 leads by 3 seconds here over Wright, who has seen some serious redemption today, up to 2nd place in this race. As the pace would have it, slowly chipping away at that gap on LeBay. We'll see how far that plans to go over the course of today's session. 2.9 seconds, then 3.1, so it's bouncing between sort of a 2 to 3/10 range here in the last couple of corners. We'll catch on with them as and when more developments arrive. We do see here for Brooklyn Donkin setting his sights on a fight for 5th place. We'll stay on board then with the BMW and we'll be back to you in just a moment's time. As we followed on board here with Donkey, we've seen that overtake in for 5th place over Ben Cheeseman. The two now 7 tenths apart from one another. We'll catch on with them in a moment's time. Looking back in then to see this fight going on, all the meanwhile for 4th place, Matthew Badensky with the world's weight upon his shoulders down in the AM category holds off Veldkamp, Potvin, Quito and Sanchez. With Sanchez having seemingly sort of bled away from the rest of the pack there, it is now a 4-car pack for contention of 4th place. But Badensky holding off Veldkamp. Closest in consideration here in towards turns 1 and 2. We now see joining the fray then from the pit lane, Danny Felix is down and out of this race. Pity given how things turned out for him. Joey Fisher, in the time we've last since checked, is now into the pit lane. Electrical problems there on the front end of his car and major front end damage, as it would appear. That could very well be the end of his time here in race 3. Of course, won in race 1 today. Was so close, but now both the race leaders of the last 2 races are now out, as it would appear. Well, Felix is back out onto the track, so all is not yet lost, but I would say in terms of taking home a race win today, they are now out of it. By having come into that pit lane, that has now given the opportunity over here to a rather interesting case I would present here between that of Cedric Grenier-Massey and Richard Cecil. You can see these two are far and away cleared from the rest of the field. We also see now that in the recent spite of what's happened for Joey Fisher, that has brought Badensky's fight up to 3rd. This is a podium fight we are looking at now between 4, nearly 5 cars in contention. 3 of which, or 4 of which, depending on how wide you want to look here, are manufactured by Ford. It is a BMW that stands alone amongst that pack, denying Ford access to the podium right now. Stepping out wide there, Veldkamp. It's worth pointing out, trouble for Cheeseman. Cheeseman is out. Ben Cheeseman is out of this race. A shock departure there up in the pro category. The 114 5-star Lamborghini is out. The only remaining 5-star car then, the 113 of Kyle Jenkins, currently battling with Wright for 2nd place here in the pros. Behind them, Jonas Franke. Sudden drama then after the first 15 minutes here in race 3. Among the growing number of casualties then, Joey Fisher, Stephen Black, David Tanguay, and momentarily Danny Felix, who is now back out onto the track, adamant to see the checkered flag. Richard Cecil has brought the gap between himself and Cedric Grenier-Massey in by 3 tenths. There is still the chance here he turns this around. 6 cars remain of the pros, 5 of which concentrated in the top 10. The only outlier to that is just outside the top 15. That's Stefan Nikolai, who's had a few problems over the course of race 3. Danny Felix now officially moves to 20th. Actually, as I say that, it's a case where Joey Fisher is back out, so he's not moved up a position. He still is 20th. But Danny Felix is now back. Oh, no, he is now 19th. So Fisher is now 20th there. It took a bit of a moment to update, but now we get the official run in there for the data. Dupois versus Pereira, one of the latest fights in consideration. Of course, there is still that major fight going on for the podium between Badensky, Veldkamp, Potvin, and Quito. There is obviously some fights still going on outside of the scope of just the podium alone. We do see here Christophe Dupois versus Ruben Pereira. A unique case here for Pereira when you consider he didn't set a time over the course of quali. Running out wide there from Catalunya. Be curious to see how that one gets on. Checking in here with Jenkins v. Wright. That gap still maintains just over 3/4 of a second at the last interval. We'll see what it looks like coming up in towards Sector 2. Things are still very close there between the 54 and the 113. 23 minutes left to go. We see now Jonas Franke is into the pit lane. An emergency stop for the 413. Is it a likely case like the 114? Is he out of this race? 22.5 minutes left to go, and it has been a sudden turn of events here for Jonas Franke. Was inside of that top 5 fight for quite some time here. In division, will drop in behind Stefan Nikolai, giving him the last of those top 5s. What has been a very sudden change here for that 413. In terms of the 54, we see he's now put a full second over Jenkins in their fight for second. 22 minutes left to go then here in Barcelona. You see a newfound fight here. A battle amongst 2 generations of Vantage here. The V12 versus the V8 Vantage. And we'll go to catch on board with this one, as this is going to be a treat for the eyes and ears, going on board with the Aston Martin V12 Vantage of Carina Stinson. Staggering soundtrack that is. 5.9 litre V12 engine, naturally aspirated, no turbos, no supercharger, no nothing. The purest of engine notes, the NA V12. Up in front of it, you'll be hearing from Casey Malz's Aston Martin, a 4 litre twin turbo Mercedes AMG V8 engine. Up in front, looks like trouble though. Yellow flags are out. It's the 888 of Pereira, who I believe has also now come into the pit lane in another emergency stop. The latest generation Vantage you see there, driven by Casey Malz, up in 15th place. Introduced in 2018. Before it was this one, the V12 Vantage, then later changed over to the V8 Vantage for use in endurance racing. It is a fascinating thing to see multiple generations of this model on the same track. The only other place you'd hope to see that would be with Porsche or Lamborghini, for that matter, when you see the various iterations of the 911, the 991 and the 992 specifically, or when you look for Lamborghini, you see the Reiter and the Huracan. The Reiter being a adaptation of the Gallardo. Or with Ferrari, for that matter, with the 488 and the 296. But this is technically the same name badge model, just 2 separate generations of it. What a soundtrack that is. And what a sight. Big Aston Martin fan personally, so this is a fantastic thing to see amongst these two. We see they're running out wide though, goes Stinson. In an effort to rejoin the track, goes over the emergency curbs there. The back end could come away, but keeps it from the wall. Back on with these two later, taking a look in then with Wright v Jenkins, now within 0.6 of a second to one another for control of second place. As they roll down through Eurocar into the RACC chicane. Just under 20 minutes left to go. We're out past the halfway mark. Recently out of the pit lane goes Sergio Belda. Also worth noting here, the 413 still yet to have confirmed status. I think it is a case where we don't quite yet know what's going to happen for him. As for the 888, we're told Pereira is out, sadly, of this race. So now going to catch in on board with Kyle Jenkins. This ought to be a rather interesting spectacle to see here, as that Ferrari gives some serious challenge now to that second place spot. On board with Jenkins. Up out of turn 3 at Renault corner, up towards Repsol. Heavy braking zone here. The Ferrari's very good in these kind of corners. Parabolic open hairpin right. We have a white flag out ahead for a slow car on track. It's for Sergio Belda's number 65 as he ducked off of the track to get out of the way of the 119. You see from the Lexus there, getting a little too handsy with the curbs, kicked the back end away, made the car over-rotate, and he had to snap it back into form from turn 5 at Seat, up through turn 6 and turn 7, now up through turn 8, in towards turn 9. Those four corners come at you thick and fast in the middle sector up towards sector 3. Down at Lakaiha. Up and around turn 12 we go. Eurocar coming up next. And the ever-tight RACC chicane. Very tough section to master in these GT3s, just given the lack of available space. It's already awkward enough in Formula 1. During the course of the Spanish Grand Prix, I think it's part and parcel of the reason when they moved to the 2022 cars that the track had to take a necessary update to go along with them, because trying to go up over those curbs in cars like them would have been a recipe for disaster. You would have been asking for trouble. You see in the run-in towards lap 13, really opening the taps there was right over Jenkins. Half a second he made up there on the run from the opening straight towards turn 1. You see in the corners, though, this is the Ferrari's forte. This is what gets him back into the fight. Out of Renault corner in towards Repsol. Jenkins now 3/10 away. Half a second between these two. And as we drop into the last quarter hour of racing, let's get a look at the overall standings here. LeBay leads over Wright with Jenkins in hot pursuit for second place. Donkin in 4th place. And Cedric Grenier-Massey continues to lead then here in Barcelona, looking to add his name to the ring of brand new race winners. After we saw the first win for Danny Felix in race 2, and in race 1 was the first win for Joey Fisher. Richard Cecil up to second in the AMS. Has been a real turnaround performance from him today. Even if he doesn't walk away with a race win here in Barcelona, he can still hold his head high, knowing the kind of adversity he's had to play against and the fact that he has still risen above all of it here in race 3. Better late than never. There's always another race. It's the same advice we told him earlier on when we had him in our Twitch chat, but what a drive it's been from him today. 3rd place for Badensky, and this is one that has been held in such fine balance over the last couple of laps here. For the greater majority of this race, even had a push between him and several other drivers. It was originally for 4th, but after Fisher's problems in the pit lane, he has now since rejoined the circuit. It's worth noting there. Badensky moved up to 3rd and holds that off from Andrew Veldkamp, Didier Potvin, and JM Quito, who fall in past 4th, 5th, and 6th. Sanchez in 7th. Stefan Nicolai, technically a Division 5th there, 12th overall. Division 8th for Dupois, 9th for Mals, and 10th for Stinson. The last time we saw Stinson, she was closer to Casey Mals. It was a fight amongst 2 generations for the Aston Martin Vantage, the 2018 and 2013 models. Felder in 11th. Felix in 12th. Fisher 13th. The rest currently soft DNFs. Looking back in here with Jenkins in his continued efforts to fight with Wright. The 54 and the 113 still contending second. Now for Jenkins, this will be his 2nd podium in a row, so it would appear, here in Barca. This ought to be a rather interesting performance to find out of him here, as he's already got his sights set on getting 2nd place. 14 minutes left to go. We'll be looking in the ballpark then of roughly about, I want to say about 8 laps-ish left to go there at a push here in race 3. Faster in the last lap was Right. We'll catch on with them a little later on. Going to look in with, oh, as we see there for Karina Stinson into the wall off of Repsol corner into Seat. As it looked to be the case, come away with only a little bit of damage there by the looks of it to the rear wing, in spite of how monstrous the impact was. Rear wing is damaged there. That could lead to further complications here for the 800. Will be more than likely making their way to the pits. Taking a look in here, Stefan Nicolai versus Ivan Sanchez. A recent fight developing, as there has been trouble in front for the 26, if I'm not mistaken there, of JM Quito. Yes, is trouble for his comrade. Originally was defending away from both Potvin and Veldkamp. And it has been disaster here in race 3 for the Holkianos team. As now we have it to where Sanchez has lost ground off of Nikolai and JM Quito in what looks to be quite a fair deal of trouble. Actually, was it for JM Quito? I'm having a quick glance here to see. There was trouble for the 26, is what it read there. Oh, he's still up in front, albeit having lost quite a fair deal of ground off to Stefan Nikolai. But the most poignant part of that is that he's lost even further ground away from his ongoing fight with Potvin and Veldkamp and Badensky. 12 minutes left to go then in this race. Closest fights among them. We're seeing it here for third in the AMs and second for the pros. Wright and Jenkins in contention of second, Badensky, Potvin and Veldkamp in contention of third. And that summarises the bulk of fights we have here as we enter the closing 10 minutes of not only race 3 but round 7 in its entirety. You see then side by side, Potvin versus Badensky. Number 96, Casey Mouse, given a drive through, but as we see there on the inside goes Didier Potvin. This is for a podium in the AM category. Badensky holds his ground there for the inside at turn 2, but to the outside at turn 3. This is a dangerous spot for him because he runs the risk like we saw for David Tanguay earlier, and now we see it right now running out wide. Washed out from turn 3 at Renault, right up to the rear bumper as we make our way in towards Repsol, looking for the inside. Goes Badensky, throwing the kitchen sink into this one for third. Out through Repsol into Seat. To the inside is Didier Potvin. To the outside there, Matthew Badensky. Potvin holds third after turn 5, through turn 6. Now up towards turn 7, 8 and 9 here in the middle sector. Great move so far by Potvin, but we've also seen some brilliant defense here by Badensky. I highly doubt, with 10 minutes on the line, that we are over with this fight. We also see a new one emerge here. Veldkamp versus Nikolai versus Quito. A three-way split for overall 9th on track. For Veldkamp, it would be to put him into the top 5 in the AMs. You see they're up and alongside now ahead of JM Quito. That forces him into the iron sights of Andrew Veldkamp as we round turn 11 into turn 12. Now we go up towards turn 13 at Eurocar. Veldkamp within his chances to seize the top 5 in AM, making his way through to the RACC chicane. Nine minutes left to go then, seeing with these two side by side. Very nearly was the case there. He was in the draft for some time. You see in the case here of Veldkamp, he is not letting go to the opportunity to move back into that top 5. We've seen already as well, side by side now back up into an exchange here for third is Potvin versus Badensky. The last interval showed them 9 thousandths apart, so these two far from decided when it comes to that podium. We see here for Quito holding the inside into Seat corner. Veldkamp to the outside, sizing up a switchback and goes for it. It's contact though between the pair as they go in through the sponsor boards at the side of the road there. Quito holds his ground, but Veldkamp's shaken up after a failed attempt of a switchback. Meanwhile, up on the podium, Potvin holds ground off Badensky. But still at the forefront of AM is Cedric Grenier-Massé, looking to become a third in a row on new winners here in round 7 in the AM category. Looking up to the podium of the pros, Jenkins still holds his ground in his contention to fight with Wright for second. He's running out wide out of turn 3. We see then in the closing 7 minutes, the last of the fights here on this track starting to boil over. As many of the other fights here have frozen up since, such as the case we've seen for so long here between Budensky and Potvin. Also, as we saw earlier, for Quito v Veldkamp and Nikolai versus Quito. Now we see the latest among them. Going to catch on board then with the Ferrari number 113 of Kyle Jenkins. Pursuing up and around Kamsa.
When discussing Jenkins' winning history, or I suppose performance history, I should say, here in this series, having a look down through the order right now, Jenkins ranks in 7th on the grid. That's a joint 7th with Rafael Bayer at this time. His best result has been 6th place. So already has he triumphed over his best result, having brought himself to a podium at the end of race 2. Now looking to go 2 on the trot, could very well elevate that above to 2nd place. Going toe-to-toe then with Wright, a driver who already has a win under his belt far earlier in the season over in Watkins Glen. That bizarre strategy we saw cooked up by Wright was the secret recipe behind his successes there. That and domineering pace in the Lexus. It was also in that race we saw the second and last victories of Everaldo dos Santos this season down in the AM category. For the 2 rounds thereafter would go on to be dominated by Richard Cecil. You can see how things have gone so far at round 7, with race 1 and race 2 yielding still positive results here. His 3rd and 4th victories of the World Series for Christian LeBay, and then brand new victories for Joey Fisher and Danny Felix in the AM category. Very curious stuff indeed. And we could still be on the horizons here, 5 minutes around to the end of this race, to see a brand new winner in the circle down in AM with Cedric Grenier-Massey. 0.7 of a second. It's been very, very finely held between these two over the course of the bulk of race 3. And I'd say there is very little end in sight, because these two have their own strengths and weaknesses over the course of this track, and they find themselves held in a very awkward, just sub-second stalemate between the 113 and the 54. We'll catch on with them towards the checkered flag. 6.5 seconds out is Brooklyn Donkin, a driver who has had some phenomenal comebacks here from race 2 and now race 3 to put himself amongst the top 5 in Pro, having started towards the back end of the grid after his disconnect. You see for Cedric Grenier-Massey holds the ground off of Richard Cecil by 5.6 seconds. In the lead of the AMs, looking to take home his first AM victory. Such has been the case for Joey Fisher and Danny Felix in the last 2 races of round 7. Richard Cecil still beaming ear to ear to have been able to turn things around after his disconnect in race 1. And a down and out performance of race 2. It's 3rd time's the charm here to put him onto the podiums in the AM category and continue his lead of the AM Championship. Didier Potvin recently had that move up towards 3rd place, up over that of having a glance back to it was JM Quito, if memory serves correctly. And then in his recent endeavours fighting with Andrew Veldkamp, there was further complications thereafter. Budensky we see now all the way down behind Quito. As we close in then on the last 3 minutes of racing, this is one of the closest among them. We see... Oh, this is actually Sanchez. Oh, we had that mixed up there. The number 26 is safe and sound. It's the 91 that's in the firing line here off of Budensky. This is currently in the control of 6th place in the AMs. Number 91, Ivan Sanchez, fighting with Matthew Budensky.
Meanwhile, recent updates for the fight for second now sees it over a second between Wright and Jenkins as we enter the last 3 minutes. Further updates on that interval now brings it up to 1.3 seconds. So is the writing on the wall here for Jenkins's hopes to see second place? He was equalised then on his newly crowned best result of the season, being third place. Right now, it's a unique situation here for Kyle Jenkins because he finds himself one of a very rare number of drivers who hold a 100% top 10 rate in this series. Every round that he's competed in that has not resulted in a DNS, where he's not started the race, he's not been there for the race start, he has finished within the top 10. His worst result has been 8th place, which he picked up 3 times on the Triton Silverstone, and then in the last go around at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It's been a case where he's yet to finish out of that top 10. Now, a few other drivers to hold this accolade would be a case where Lebay is one among them. Tanguay has a DNF, so that doesn't count. For Zalan Such, it's a bit of a loophole for him because he's only competed in 3 rounds, but all 3 of those he's not finished off the podium. It's more impressive just on paper than it is when you actually analyse it. But that's still not to take away from what was a fantastic triad of performances from him. It's a pity he couldn't be with us today to contend race wins with Christian Lebay. It's been a clean sweep then as Lebay enters the final lap of racing here in round 7. We do just quickly see there, noting an incident for the 505. Yes, Badensky is in trouble at turn 7. As it would happen, turned all the way around. The BMW gets back up and going, but does appear to have a bit of damage before he gets to the end of this race. We see here for the 119 making his way up through the very same complex of corners. Very easy to catch yourself out in that section and turn the car around. Such was the case there very recently with the 505. Looking on in the fight behind them out through Campsa. They are getting very, very close to one another, but it is going to be called very, very close to the end of this race here. Going down in towards Lekaiha. They put on a great show of it so far. It's worth getting a note of things here to see a fight with Stefan Nicolai and Didier Potvin. But before we do so, making his way down through to Eurocar. Following on board then with that 119. It's been a clean sweep of performances all round here for the 119 of Lebay here in round 7. He won in race 1, he won in race 2. Now making his way to the line in race 3 of round 7. Lebay in a clean sweep. A trio of victories, a hat-trick for him there. And that adds to his 5th this season. Wright in 2nd, Jenkins in 3rd, Donkin on a spectacular 4th. Again, a brilliant comeback drive from him there. And as we see, making his way into the final sector here is Cedric Grenier-Massey, up and ahead of Richard Cecil, who has turned things around over the course of this round of the championship and over the last 2 races where things had really not gone his way to bring it back into a podium. But as it would happen, we've seen 2 brand new race winners over the course of the last 2 races. We saw Joey Fisher and we saw Danny Felix. And as we round turn 16 to the checkered flag here, we'll see a 3rd with Cedric Grenier-Massey winning in race 3 of round 7 for the first time in AM. Following on from him there to 2nd, having turned his hopes around, Richard Cecil back on form here on the podium. Stefan Nicolai looks to take grounds here for 7th overall in this race. That'll be a division 5th in the pros as he makes his way down to the line. Didier Potvin will make the podium in the AMS. Very close finish there for Badensky v Dupois, 127 thousandths for them there in contention of 7th. We see there at the end of the race what has been a very mixed bag of emotions from many a driver over the course of these last 3 races here of round 7. But at the end of it, Lebay, another win, 3 in a row here in Barca. A clean sweep mirroring the same qualities of the last driver to take to the triple header and win, Zalan Such, in the number 45. Number 54 finished 2nd then. That's Wright in 2nd. Jenkins in 3rd, Donkin 4th. And there, a brand new win for Cedric Grenier-Massey in AM, up and ahead of Richard Cecil in Division 2nd, 6th overall. Stefan Nikolai, 5th in class, 7th overall. And then just going by literal readings here, 8th for Potvin, 9th for Veldkamp, 10th for Quito, 11th for Sanchez, 12th for Badensky, 13th for Dupois, 14th for Belder, 15th for Stinson, Mals in 16th, Felix in 17th, Fisher in 18th, and there you see your DNFs, Pereira, Franca, Cheeseman, Black, and Tanguay here in race 3. Many DNFs over the last 3 races, and what an ensemble of racing we've had. Nonetheless, then, in the AM category. In the pros, it's been a clean sweep for LeBay, but it has been rather interesting to see what's gone on behind him, with plenty of promising drives from Wright, Jenkins, and Donkin. Plenty to carry then on with us into round 8 of the championship. That's the end of round 7. Looking at where we'll be after today, we head to the land down under on May 9th for 2 hours of racing at the Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. One of the best circuits in circulation here on ACC, and I do thoroughly look forward to that one. That comes up on May 9th, same time as today. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.